Hello. Am I live? Am I live? I think I'm live. Maybe I'm live. Whether I'm live or not, we can get started. So we're back again. We're back again with another comic journey influences, and we're going to be influencing today an artist by the name of Buz Hassan or Hassan or Hasten or Hassan. I don't know. We're gonna figure out how to pronounce it that when we get him on. But I'm assuming it's Hassan. It has to be Hassan, like Hassan Chop. I would have I would assume something like that. But regardless, forget it. I'm getting ahead of myself. That's for the interview. But until I get him on, we're gonna play the most obnoxiously long intro in the world. And I assure everybody, I promise you, this is my promise to you. I will make sure that I triple to not to, if not quadruple the length of it going forward. So for now, enjoy the short intro.
Hey.
Huh? Oh, hey.
You're the Kool-Aid guy.
Yeah.
What are you doing?
Just waiting.
For what?
I'm just waiting, dude. Relax. Hey, is there any place around here that sells batteries? Guys, don't distract me, all right? I gotta really be up.
So there's no organs or glands or anything, right? It's just a liquid?
Yeah, it's just a liquid.
I don't know if this is a weird question, but can I have some?
All right, fine. Tilt your head back and I'll lean my liquid down into your mouth.
Oh, now I don't want it.
Oh, crap. Did I miss it?
No, you didn't miss it because we didn't even start yet. We're going to start right now. Unless you talk about the intro, I could play that again, just in case you missed it. But should we play the intro again? Oh, yeah. Well, if you say we should, I'm not. You always say, oh, yeah, to everything. Forget about you. All right? All right. I'm not going to hold our guest too long. We'll get him in here, and we're going to make sure that we treat him with the proper respect. But before we do that, let's give a moment for Comics Curing Cancer, C3, coming up next weekend. Well, if you're that upset about it, I will play it again, but not now. We're not going to keep our guests in the back room forever. Okay, I promise. Hello, by the way. Good evening. Good evening to you, Rudy. Yes, you were first. Okay. All right. Now, with no further ado, Buz Hasson.
Hey, what's up, man?
Hey, Buzz.
It's We
So
actually
is
around
it
these parts.
Hassan?
It's Hassan, actually, like has son.
Hassan. Hassan. It's not. It's
Yeah.
not Hassan Chop.
Nah,
Like-
not that cool.
No. All right.
Nah, not that
I was
cool.
hoping. I was hoping to keep playing Hassan Chop clips for you, but like those
I guess
old
I could
Looney
run with
Tunes.
it. Yeah, I could run with
Remember those old Looney Tunes? Was it Looney Tunes with the guy that would chase Bugs Bunny all over the place? Keep saying Hassan Chop.
it. Oh, he's trying to make him into a meal, I think.
I think I
Island?
remember something like that. You
Yeah.
killed it. All right, Hassan. All right.
Sorry.
All right. It's all right. All right. Listen, Buzz. I wanted to give you a special treatment today. You know, we always
Awesome.
have the Kool-Aid Man here. We always have the Kool-Aid Man, but of late, I think artists deserve another co-host. So you're gonna have a third co-host that's joining us as well. And
All right.
back from the dead, we have Bob Ross.
Bob, happy trees.
He's gonna make happy trees and puffy clouds, and he's gonna be judgmental. He's a
That's
very
okay.
judgmental dude.
Comics are.
I don't know if he's gonna like your style.
That's okay. He doesn't have to.
You know, he's very puffy. You're not too puffy.
Not at all.
You know, he's happy. You're a little bit dreary sometimes with your art, but we're gonna get into that. We're gonna get into that. You got that horror flavor in your art style.
Self-expressive process.
That's right. Good evening, Lisa. How are you? All right. So as people are coming in, I figured I give you a couple minutes to give a little bit of introduction of yourself. Just let everybody know exactly who you are.
Okay. I am
Give you-
one half. Okay, well, I'm
you-
one half of the creative team on a book that came out for a while called The Living Corpse. Co-created it with another artist named Ken Hazer, who is a sketch artist and cover artist over at Dynamite Entertainment. And I think we published it for like 16 years and put out a couple movies. It didn't turn out so great, but they happened anyway. And now we are mostly freelance guys working. I work for American Mythology. It puts out Night of the Living Dead, Willy's Wonderland, Hatchet, Fright Night, a couple other horror licenses. And Ken is current artist on Darkwing Duck and Gargoyles right now.
Well, did you say that you actually did a couple of movies?
Yeah. So we were among that first generation of creators that were able to use forums online before social media. And being a former like special makeup effects artist, hey Haz, what's up? I knew some people in Hollywood. I knew some like visual effects people, and like comic publishers just would not give me the time of day. And I was like, you know what if I just go around them and go right to Hollywood? And I ended up meeting a fella named Justin Paul Ritter, who was he had worked for Roger Corman, and he was a fan of zombies and zombie comics. And we utilized different forums, different horror forums. I can't remember what they were called, like back in the day before socials, to just connect and put our stuff out there. And we were optioned to make The Living Corpse into a film before it had a publishing deal. And I'll tell you, we were not ready for that, like at all. Like we were still very much learning how to do things on our own. And but it was a wild ride, and it was like a 200-mile-an-hour fast track into the industry. And here we are today, still doing things.
That must have been it. Did you get to meet Corman directly?
No, not directly.
He must be an interesting dude.
I mean, notoriously cheap is how people describe him. You know what I mean? Like, and that's how you're able to make, so many movies, is if you don't spend a lot of money, you still have a lot of money to do things with it. If your movies make back, yeah, no, 100%. I mean, there's 11 Puppet Master movies for that reason. If you make your money back and what you spend on low budget horror, the producers will spend it again to try again. And we didn't get that lucky, but they love to eat up creative properties and then sit on them and do nothing. You know what I mean? You still haven't seen a Goon movie. You still haven't seen a hack slash movie. But our movie isn't watchable, to say the least. There's a lot of ways I wish it would have went. We had very little control. But what I will say is that it saw fruition, and it ended up at Redbox and on Blu-ray, and that's difficult. Like, getting distribution is harder than just going out and making a movie with an iPhone. You couldn't do it back then. But yeah, it's an interesting bird to deal with. The movie.
Well, do you have the rights to the movie to be able to play it anywhere you want?
I actually, the movie came out in 2012 at San Diego Comic-Con, and then it did a Redbox run in 2013. And recently, the rights went back to us from inactivity. So our contract actually said the word "forever" in it, which I thought was weird. But yeah, from 10 years of not doing anything with the property and not paying us any royalties or licensing to keep it, it just reverts back to us in our contract. So if we want to, we can sell it again, to someone else. And that might happen. You know what I mean? Like, my whole goal with it was just to make a monster hero comic where the hero is a monster. That's what I'm into, And so I would love to see it as a rubber monster movie someday, like a Psycho Gorman or a Toxic Avenger. But yeah, it ended up being animated, which was very difficult to do on a low budget. So.
Well, it really sounds like we should be doing a watch party on this movie itself.
No. You don't want to watch.
No?
You don't want to watch the movie. No, I'm sorry.
Now I want to watch it even more.
It was ambitious. You know what I mean? But ambitious and low budgets don't go together. You know
Wait,
what I mean?
is it so bad? Is it so bad it's good?
No. If it was live action, I think that's where it would be. Our second film, called Little Dead Riding Hood, is the same people that make Sharknado. That's so bad it's good. You can kind of watch. That one's live action, and it's good to put in the background at a party. But the animation on Corpse, unfortunately, was just lacking. And somewhere along the lines, we ended up moving a lot of animators, I think, from like Asia to America to like fast track it, make it better. And then like DreamWorks kind of cherry picked them all and took them from us. And so we didn't have the crew. We like lost our crew like halfway into it. And when you have a movie, I
still want to watch it now.
No, I mean, if you want to watch it, it's fine. But it's like, you just have to understand that like we had no control. You know what I mean? Like, the Hollywood people love your comic book ideas, but they don't want to include you, unless you have to understand too. Like, we sold rights to a comic book that hadn't even been sold yet. And
somebody's seen it.
Unfortunately, you've seen it. But yeah, so they didn't have a clue what it was going to do. You know what I mean? And like, I kept pitching them the whole time. You got to do it this way. I think this, because I was a makeup effects guy. I kind of knew, like, I know how to shoot horror on the cheap, especially live action. And they wanted to go animate it because the scope of the universe in the comic is big, but you don't always have to like touch on all of it. You know what I mean? So anyway,
I'm gonna give you credit, regardless if you believe. I'm sure that you're gonna be a bigger critic about it than anybody else, because that's how people usually are of their own stuff.
Yeah, no, I mean, you have to be your own internal editor if you're a creator. It's the only way to.
But you did accomplish getting it done, which is a feat in itself.
That is harder to do than if you just went out with a camera and made, some like first person film or whatever. Like, getting distribution, getting these companies to sign the contract, getting them to put it out. Like, it's uncontrollably difficult. I don't know how it even happened. I think it only occurred because, hey, what's up, man? We just never gave up. Like, we were just hammering emails, doing new designs, bugging people. And like, I think the enthusiasm was, it kind of spread. And so it kept the project going. The director believed in it, and, damn near ruined his career, but that's how it happened. That's how it got done. And I think the most important thing is, like, it might not be the best, but like, did you complete your project? Because I think the biggest thing in creative communities is people kind of get in their own way and they don't really finish what they start. And like, commitment and endurance is really more important than necessarily talent, because even the Diary of a Wimpy Kid guy got rejected, by Marvel and hundreds of times, and obviously he's found some success with that project, that IP. So I just think it's like, if you believe in it enough and you do it long enough, like that's how it comes to be.
Well, look at the amount of stuff out there that has been rejected. There's so much good stuff out there that people haven't even touched. That
Well, I from making our own stuff, I've spoken to a lot of people in the industry, people at Nickelodeon, people at Adult Swim, and a lot of the higher ups are out of touch with what's cool. They only really like look at, what's hype and what's viral. But like, there's so much talent out there. There's so many good stories to be told, and a lot of it gets overlooked for, per se, something that might sell. So our comic is about one zombie, a sentient zombie who's self-aware, and he is in, a world of shit, and so all kinds of other like dark, nefarious forces at play. And he's been a zombie for a long time, and he's sort of hiding in graveyards and kind of living amongst other things. And it has a humorous take. It's satirical. It's in the realm of like The Tick, Hellboy, and Evil Dead. And so what's funny is, like, when Walking Dead was just a comic and not a TV show, publishers would be like, "Oh, we heard you guys have a zombie comic." And we're like, "Yeah." And then we would go into meetings and pitch it, and they would be like, "So it's not like Walking Dead?" And we're like, "No, it's totally different." And they're like, "We don't want anything to do with it."
They just want this straight
They
Romero style.
They just want it rips. Yeah, they just want rips off of other stuff that's selling. And I don't know. Like, I came up. My partner went to the Joe Kubert School. He's a graduate. I came up studying under like Dick Smith, makeup effects legend, and some of my first portfolio reviews were with Mike Manley and Walt Simonson, and like legends in comics. And so some of their first lessons to us were practice, be original, don't steal ideas, do your own work, and have fun. And so we did that. And then when we made the comics and had movie deals and were going to publishers, because it wasn't like something else they had already sold before, they weren't interested. But as you're showing your work as a young creator to these legends, and they tell you to be original, and they tell you, to do your own stuff, and then you do, and then it just gets overlooked. I mean, the creator-owned market alone is full of talent, and most of the effort is years of work that just gets overlooked. Like, it's just here and gone, and it sucks because those creators
That's
are
a real shame, though. But yeah, I'll tell you something. Living Corpse is actually built for animation in a lot of ways.
So when we were pitching it, they had
never.
I appreciate that, and I think that we created it based on that idea. We're fans of that stuff. We're fans of stop motion. We're fans of animation. We're fans of comics, horror movies, B movies, comedy and horror, slapstick. And so we're putting all these things into the thing that we want to make, that we love. And it was prime, I think, for, television or whatever, movies or whatever. And it's just, you have to get lucky to get that creator in film or TV to believe in that. You know what I mean? And you've seen it.
Would you ever consider going the trauma route?
I've spoken with Lloyd many times. I mean, and the thing is like when you, and I would absolutely go with trauma 100%, but it's going to depend on, you have to let stuff go. You know what I mean? Like, if you create something, like, I know when we made Little Dead Riding Hood, we pitched it to Zenescope because they were doing the grim fairy tale stuff, and it was supposed to be like a more Italian horror version of like Red Riding Hood, like super dark and gritty, and it wasn't going to be pretty or sweet. And they turned us down. They weren't interested in it. And so we immediately just sold that to be made into a movie too. And when they made that, they went live action, and the process was so much better than animation because they knocked the movie out in like 6 weeks, where animation took like 7 years. And so in those 6 weeks, we did poster designs, storyboards, and it was just a much funner process. And I think the outcome, albeit, there's things I would have done differently, but I think the outcome was just more successful and better in live action. And so, yeah, I would absolutely go a Troma route. I think Troma is great. I grew up on Troma. I'm not far from Jersey. I have a lot of respect for Lloyd and doing things his own way. You know what I mean? I like do-it-yourselfers. I like anybody that does it themselves.
No, I love a lot of Troma. Some of it is way out there, but
that's everything. Yeah.
I love Troma. I mean, that's I grew up on that stuff.
They
but I'm New
created
York
a
too,
style.
so I'm
Yeah.
close.
They created
You
their
know?
own style. Like now it's going to be referenced. And it's like Lloyd can't get the respect he deserves alive, but I guarantee you when Lloyd passes away, they're going to call him a legend and a genius. I guarantee it. They won't give it the credit now. They don't. It's too on the nose, and it would make him feel good. And so,
You
unfortunately,
think they'll give
entertainment.
him the Ed Wood treatment?
I think he'll go down in history as like an Ed Wood, 100%.
Yeah.
And every creator has their ups and downsides. You know what I mean? But like he did something at a time that no one had done it. In the way that he did it, and it's become an institution. And like half the crew that runs the Joe Bob Briggs Drive-In show started at Trauma. James Gunn started at Trauma. So I'm not saying it's like Shakespeare. I'm just saying that they did something that no one else did, and they kind of carved their own niche. And that's what art is all about. Art is all about carving a niche that's your own niche. You know what I mean? It's where it's unmistakably yours and no one else's.
I'm there's a lot of layers to you. There's a lot of stuff you're involved in.
I've been at this for a while.
But you got me so intrigued right now with this aspect of your life and your professional career that I'm gonna have to ask you a lot more questions on this.
Yeah.
You just glanced over your training, and you just hit a couple of hot topic things that like are close to my heart as far as studying special effects and makeup art and that kind of thing, because that's actually one of the things I wanted to do as a kid. I wanted to go to Savini school and train under him as far as learning to do all that. Unfortunately,
it's funny, actually, Savini was one of the ones that helped me out early on. I had a lot of respect for him being an East Coaster, and he didn't move to LA and do the LA thing. He stayed on the East Coast, did it his way.
Yep.
Made his own name for himself. And he told me something really important years ago, probably in like 98 or 99. I was talking to him on AOL Instant Messenger of all things. And he said, the more you know how to do, the more you're going to get to do. And so that stuck with me because he is like a stuntman, an actor, an effects guy. And he was right. Like if you learn a craft and you get good at it, and then you learn like more about other crafts that could, benefit each other, you get to do a lot of things, That's why you see a lot of like comic illustrators become writers also, because as the artist, you're the workhorse, and as the writer, you're like the creator. But really, Kirby created most of the stuff on the paper, and then Stan put the words in. But yeah. So,
well, I think it's a lot easier of a transition for an illustrator to go into writing than a writer to go into illustrating.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Because you're already telling a story with your visuals.
Yeah,
you're using a guideline, but you already have a concept of how to visualize things and put a story together. So to put the words to it, I believe, I'm not saying it's easy, but I feel that it's easier than actually learning how to actually pick up a pen and ink and actually illustrate without having that background.
It's funny that you say that, because if you look at like Alan Moore's scripts, it's nothing but doodles that go along with it. Like he draws a lot of stuff that goes with like what he's writing, and I think he's kind of like has that duality about him. Obviously, he hasn't drawn full comics, but some things are easier than others. Artists.
We have a lot of people that are competent like that could do both. Obviously, they're stronger in one over the other, but but I think going from that like from the visual to the writing is a smoother progress. I just feel that way.
Yeah, you still have to study and learn. Yeah, you still have to study and learn, because your writing can get poetic and redundant and not really go anywhere. Like certain artists who are big name artists that write their own stuff, like their stuff is like redundant. It doesn't like end or evolve. It's sort of the same thing over and over again.
So you got into you got your training from the background in makeup and effects. You trained under really viable. Your partner actually went to the Joe Kubert School, which I didn't know that. We're gonna have to have him on one time as well.
He doesn't do a lot of this stuff. I don't know if you could get him on. That's why I'm here.
Well, I'm glad I got you.
Yeah. I'm like the Jay. He's the Silent Bob. But yeah, I went to the Joe Blasco School of Professional Stage and Theater Makeup in Florida, and then eventually graduated and worked at Universal Studios. And then I went to LA to get into the industry, and I met the crew of guys that were working on the show Buffy the Vampire Slayer, which was a big show back in the day. And they saw enough talent to kind of take me under their wing and kind of like, you know, tell me what I was doing wrong and kind of coach me to improve on this or that. And then I was doing a lot of concept design and went to Canada and worked a little bit. And then eventually I realized, you know, you couldn't really get anywhere in makeup effects without studying under Dick Smith. So luckily for me, he was still alive. And I got to spend some time working under him. And he actually told me, because he was looking at my designs, and I'm not sure if you're familiar with Mike Plug, but he did a lot of art on the horror monster stuff for Marvel in the 70s.
Very
Plug
familiar.
Plug is the designer on the Thing. John Carpenter's The Thing. He helped design the creature. And then you've got William Stout, who's the designer of the zombies on Return of the Living Dead. So there's this crossover. Also, Kerry Gamble is a longtime comic guy on Superman and also a creature designer for Steve Johnson. And so for me, there was always this correlation between comics and movies, particularly sci-fi, horror, fantasy, adventure, and that I thought it was fluid at the time, that not everything had to be so compartmentalized. It's like if you like one, you like the other. And that's kind of what I was going through. Like while Ken was at Qbert, I was doing the monster effects thing. And then when we met through a mutual friend, it was like comics and monsters came together in a way where it was like, oh, let's do this. You know what I mean? Like he had all this comics training that was like straight up classic Marvel comics training. And then I was bringing in all these like Universal Studios horror monster ideas. And, you know, and so like when we came up with the idea for the corpse, eventually we added in the living corpse to it, which makes it sound more like a Boris Karloff film. And so we just, that's how we worked. Ken was a huge horror fan. I'm a huge comic fan. And so together, just bouncing stuff off each other, it kind of like resulted in everything we did.
That's you definitely have a background that a lot of other people don't have in this business. And I like the fact that you're going through mixed mediums as far as your creativity. You go three-dimensional, I'm assuming, with all the makeup art that you've done.
Mm-hmm.
Have you done storyboarding as well while you were out in LA?
So, well, I didn't stay in LA. I just worked from the East Coast, because actually, like when you're in LA, they want you less. If you're somebody cool making cool stuff and you're not in LA, then they get to tell other people that they've like found someone outside who's like they don't know about yet. So it's kind of a cool thing. I think that's why Savini did what he did. But yeah, we did the storyboards. I think it was like 78 pages of storyboards for Little Dead Riding Hood. And that was just a comic idea. We didn't even really have like a whole comic. And because we did the Living Corpse film, we met producer, writer, screenwriter Gabriel Campisi, who was trying to get into the business and kind of get his feet wet. And we had this idea, and he knew the guys over at the Asylum that did Sharknado and Z Nation, and we were able to make a deal happen. And we brought Gabe in as the writer, and it was really cool. He's a really great guy, and he is the one guy in Hollywood that like you know, every few people you meet a solid. You know what I mean? And then when you meet a solid, like you bust your ass to do what it takes to get projects off the ground for someone who's solid. Sometimes we work with people who were flighty and kind of like into our idea one minute and then not and into our idea the next, and it's like really hard to navigate that relationship.
So how far into it did you get, as far as in the ladder of the creation of any project? Like what was the highest position that you got in the work?
I mean, creator, really. Like most of what I wanted, because I know how the business is, and like all the businesses, the comics, the video games, the movies, the TV, a lot of it, people don't get credit. That's what I noticed in all my efforts, is it's very common for people to bust their ass and do something really cool and then get like cut out of the creativity. So for us, they could have kept all the money, which wasn't a whole lot, but they could have kept all the money if I would have got like top billing as like created by. That's actually hard to achieve. And I know that in some instances, like credit is sort of erased at the end. And because there's a specific process when it goes into making titles and opening credits and credits in general, that once they're usually written and created for the project, they don't edit them. And it's like almost impossible to get back into it to change it. And so if you're not careful in that window and know people involved that have your best interests, you will get took. And you see it a lot, you know, people will.
Oh, it's ruthless, right?
It's incredibly ruthless, and it can be very disheartening. Unfortunately, for the people who have swiped credit from us, you know, we were more tenacious, and so we ended up getting it back. But yeah, like when I meet a lot of young creators now, and they have incredible talent, incredible passion, incredible drive, incredible work ethic, but they don't have enough of the business savvy around it to be careful. And your idea can get stolen very, very, very quickly, and you will have almost no ground to recover legally, because you're going to have to go fight these people where their businesses are located, usually California. Now you've got hotel stay, lawyer fees. They're going to exhaust you, and then you're going to give up and just let it go, and your dreams are crushed. So I tell people, I'm like, don't show anyone your ideas or anything until they're done and you're ready for the world to see it.
I'm glad you said that. Like, what, like, if you had to give somebody advice of how to protect their IP, other than obviously not showing anybody the idea, what is a good way for somebody that's getting ready to shop their stuff around to protect themselves prior to handing in a portfolio or a screenplay or some visuals?
There's a lot of ways to go about it.
Outside of the copyright office.
I mean, well, yeah, the first thing you do is you have to have a body of work. You have to have like we started with an ash can, which I'm sure you're familiar with, like a little small mini comic that has like all the samples and the beginnings of. And so we printed the ash can, filed the paperwork for the trademark. We ended up in a trademark dispute later, but it gets down to like splitting hairs, where if you're not publishing it and you're just sitting on it, then other people get like the options to like volley for it. So, like, that's why Marvel.
Then Ash can actually qualify as a published piece of work.
100%, yeah.
Even if you print it out of your own printer, like you've seen some of the bootleg Ash cans.
Doesn't matter if there's 1 copy or 1 million copies. You're putting it into print media, and so you know we started out in 2005 at Kinko's. Like that's where we started out. I used to tattoo someone that worked at Kinko's, and I'd go in on the midnight shift and print all our ash cans. And but like, yeah, so if you have an idea, get back to your question, you know, you really want to make sure it's really well rounded. If it's just an original character and a cool design, it's not enough. It's not enough. You got to have everything written up. You got to have the Bible, you got to have the logos. Like, you got to make sure someone else doesn't own it first. There's a lot of times people will create something, put a lot of effort into it, and realize you can't buy the rights to that. You can't trademark that, you know, none of the AI stuff you can trademark. So I would say
you just hit a trigger. AI.
That's a whole nother conversation. Moving back to what you're saying, if you have a project and you want to pitch it, you want to get it out there, you want to feel people out first before you just start showing everybody your stuff, because there are big name comic creators who have made their way through a con to my table, looked at what I had, was really impressed by it, and then within 3 to 6 months, they were doing what I was doing, and they had more name recognition. And so next thing you know, people are coming to me being like, oh, that's like so-and-so's. And I'm like, well, I talked to that guy last year. And you know, after he looked at my portfolio, you know, like apparently Spielberg stole the idea from E.T. from Dave Stevens, one of the Rocketeer guy. So
really?
Oh yeah. Like when you get into the business and you're behind the scenes and you meet creators and you give the respect to artists and writers from yesteryear, you get to know them. They tell you stories, and you hear these stories, and you're like, wow, you know, like in comics in the 50s.
Well, Steven's no longer with us, right?
No, he died very young. But if it wasn't for him, you wouldn't have a Rocketeer or an Indiana Jones or any of that shit, because he was the illustrator on all that stuff. He was the designer. You know, he's doing the storyboards for all the Indiana Jones movies. He's working specifically with like Spielberg, and
You
so
think
unfortunately,
Spielberg stole Rocketeer before or after he passed away?
well, Rocketeer is based on an old serial of like the Rocket Men, the Rocket Airmen. You know what I mean? So it's more of an homage
That's
to.
true.
He got Rocketeer made though from his hard work on all those other films though. Like you can get, like I said, if you do 10 cheap shitty movies and bust your ass and don't complain and do your best work, and they do well slowly, after 10 movies, eventually someone with clout is going to be like, hey, I like what you're doing, come work for me. You know what I mean? But again, like it's a heartbreaking business, so I wouldn't recommend anybody get into it at all with any idea or any creation unless you're willing to lose.
Or keep it close to the vest, at least.
Well, you keep it close to the vest and no one ever sees it, and then someone else will. The wavelength of creativity is so high that some people do get the same idea similarly. If I had $1 for every time I sat next to a creator that was like, The Living Corpse, I had an idea for a book once called The Corpse. Like every time I sit down at a convention, somebody's telling me this shit, and it's like, well, then you should have made it. You know what I mean? Like you have to make it. You have to put it out there. You got to make it. You got to put it out there. Talking about it isn't doing it. You know what I mean? So I say,
well, it's kind of like what we talk about behind in the backstage. Like, are there any truly original ideas out there? Kind of original. They're kind of original ideas, but there's always a variation from something that existed either years ago or thousands of years ago or just recently. There's variations.
If you're talking about American comics, everything's a ripoff of Superman. You know what I mean? Like it's the first. I mean, the first Batman drawing ever was a tracing of a Superman position. So that's that. You know what I mean? Like it used to be common back in the 40s and 50s to steal ideas. It wasn't considered plagiarism. It was kind of like market evaluation. If this character sold well this week, then this company over here was going to do that, something similar to that character as well. And it was considered to be normal unless, I believe I heard someone say that it was considered to be normal unless you stole an idea more than 8 times.
More than 8 times.
More than 8 times. And if you look at the Silver Age and before, you'll see the repetition. You know what I mean? And it's because that's what was selling. And that's probably why they didn't like our book, because it wasn't like anything else that sold. But, it depends on what your goal is. If my goal was to sell comics in number, I would rip everybody off. I would rip off whatever's selling. But that was not our goal. Our goal was to create something original that was the self-expression of our ideas of what we liked about pop culture at the time. And that's why we made what we made.
And I think at the end of the day, it probably paid off the best for you by doing that, because now you have your own identity.
Yeah, and you
mentioned a mercenary.
There's no price that can be made on your integrity, and it shows. You know what I mean? Like there's a lot of creators that I've interacted with that plagiarize, and so I just slowly back away from like being in their network. You know what I mean? Because that's not the kind of people I want to hang out with. I want to hang out with people who make original ideas and do all the hard work and make it great. That's who I'm trying to hang out with. So I only surround myself with those types of people.
That makes sense. I mean, do you have a strong supportive group around you? Like growing up,
oh yeah,
your family, your friends, were they supportive of you?
I don't know why, but I think pretty early on I fell in love with comics and imagination, and so I just kind of married it spiritually, and I played a lot of Dungeons and Dragons. I made my own comic strips, and I just stuck with what was fun, because reality can be pretty harsh, and so for me it's not so much escapism as much as it's like creativism. You know what I mean? Like I'm gonna go create in lieu of this particular life struggle or this particular life struggle. You know what I mean? It's a matter of choice and what you want to do. The time passes anyway.
Well, it sounds good that you actually had support from your loved ones around you, because that's usually something that a lot of artists and creators have an obstacle, where everybody's like basically shitting on them. They're telling them that cute, but go get a real job kind of a thing, you know?
I heard it all the time. I mean, I had supportive parents, and after something didn't work out, or if I did some time at a school and studying a particular art, and maybe was changed my mind and had to start from square one, there are a lot of times people would be like, hey, maybe you should do something else. And for me, that just wasn't an option. It's just wasn't an option.
You
I
knew
was
what you
going to do
wanted to
it.
do.
I was going to do it whether it made money or not. You know what I mean? Like I wanted to make it. Like, pharaohs in ancient Egypt spend their whole lives planning for their death, how they're going to be remembered. You know what I mean? Like the mausoleums and stuff. So in my eyes, I was just like, well, if I wrote my own obituary right now, what would I want it to say? And so I just made the things I wanted to make, so that way when I was gone, that obit would read how I wanted it to read. You know what I mean? And I have
And
fun doing
how
it.
old were you when you kind of figured out that that's what you wanted to do? What it was like a trigger point for you that said, that's it, this is what I'm doing?
I think at 19, like 15 to 19, I already knew. And I think it was an antithesis. It was a counter intelligence move on my part to a world around me that I saw that wasn't that exciting. You know what I mean? Like the bullying, like the family dramas, like I was just like, yeah, like I'm a dreamer. You know what I mean? So like Frankenfurter from Rocky Horror, like don't dream it, be it. You know what I mean? I just was like, all right, I'm gonna be it,
Well, don't
And
tell me you were the bully kid. The kid with as many tattoos as you got on you. I don't think anybody was going to mess with you.
why do you think I got into this pain? You know what I mean? Like all I did was get bullied. So, and the thing is like I'm not really like I'm not into like going to jail. So I just like took it out on, getting tattooed and skateboarding and things like that. And then, you get older and you mellow out and you're like, well, now I want to create this and create that. And you just do other stuff. But yeah, I mean,
Were you the artistic kid in class? Were you like that one kid that had the better art skills than everybody else? And everybody's like,
I
oh,
was,
give it the buzz.
I was, but I was also bullied for being that kid, which is
So they
odd.
bully you for being more creative than them.
They bully you for being talented. You know what I mean? And they bully you because they're jealous or whatever. And at fifth grade, you don't have the emotional intellectualness to know, but you're just like, this doesn't feel right, but I'm doing something well. And I'd like to continue that if it's okay with everybody in the room. You know what I mean? Like, I don't need your permission to make art and to enjoy it. And so when you get out of the system structures of schools and colleges, you're on your own now. So only you can do it. And I don't recommend creating anything unless you're a self-starter. If you can't get up and do it on your own and you need to be told to do, or you need a reminder, don't do it.
You got to be
gotta,
motivated.
You have to be a self-starter. My father was a Marine, and so his hard work ethic, I'm grateful for every day. And so I just put the same.
Thank you for his service.
Yeah, no, thank you. I'll let him know. We grew up on a VA, and I grew up around disenfranchised soldiers, kind of like Captain America, disappointed in his country, doing the right thing, stick intuitiveness, you know what I mean? Like, but having a military dad, he was like, if you're gonna do something, man, you better give it 100% or don't do it at all. And he made sure me and my brother grew up like that. And so I put the same idealism into making art, making comics, and bringing to life all the things that I've done so far and continue to do this day. Like the last thing I drew, the next thing I draw, I'm just going to try to outdo the last thing I drew with the next thing I draw. Like I'm not too concerned about what anybody thinks of it. You know what I mean? Now, obviously, if my editor doesn't like it, I got to change it. But I don't even care if he doesn't like it. I'm making it what I think is great. And if I think it's great and you don't think it's great, then we just have a difference of opinion. You know what I mean?
So clearly you're a comic artist. You've worked in Hollywood. You've done animation. What is your favorite part of the business so far that you've experienced?
Comics actually are, because it's just a piece of paper, a blank piece of paper, and whatever you put on is what you put on it. I discover new comic book artists all the time, whether they're up and coming or unheard of. And that's what is so impressive to me, is to take a blank space of nothing and make something great in it. And so I still love that process. Like when our film didn't do well, we were like, well, it's more about the comic anyway. And so we went and did another comic. And that the next comic we did after the film kind of tanked was a 160 plus page graphic novel that weighed over 1 pound. Like it was so much work. It was like 3 years of work. And my life fell apart during that process. And we still continued to do it. You know what I mean? And we eventually, that was the rise of Kickstarter. And so we jumped in on that bandwagon. We got some really good advice from guys over there. And, you know, we just picked up where we left off with a movie that didn't do as well as we would have liked, despite everyone's hard work, and threw it all into actually this book right here.
Hold on, let me make you big.
And
that was the Kickstarter.
That was our first Kickstarter, called The Living Corpse Relics. It's where the corpse fights a 10,000-year-old version of himself. And so it's from like another timeline. And it did really well for us. It was successful. We had a lot of fun with it. And we eventually went on to...
I distinctly remember Living Corpse being around, if not 90s, late 90s, early 2000s. How far back does The Living Corpse go?
Well, I think there's a manga that's called The Living Corpse, which I wasn't aware of at the time, and some fans had like a problem with the fact that, you know, we were calling our book that, but I didn't know about it. And like within the search engines, you know, as you're thoroughly going through things, it just didn't come up until like later. And then, like, you know, I did discover a couple other things, like an old 1800s Russian play called The Living Corpse, and then like a 1960, late 60s, 70s Pakistani vampire film called The Curse of the Living Corpse. And at that point, you know, we were just running with it because it was a little too late at that point. Like, you already had so much time.
When did you officially start working on it?
I'm sorry, 2005. Yeah, 2005. Yeah. And it was at, like, I would say it was at the rise of having a computer in every home, you know what I mean? And so we would work our day jobs, go home, draw pages, email each other, engage with fan bases in the forums. And we would do trivia too, and like give away free commissions. And we gave a lot of sketches away for free in the beginning to get fans. It wasn't like a ploy to get fans. It was more like, hey, who's into this stuff and do you want one? And so we were just giving stuff away and mailing stuff. You know,
are you still strictly traditional, or are you going more and more digital as time goes on?
It's funny, man. Like, I tried digital, and, you know, I can create digitally, but when, like, again, you're working your whole life for that obituary. So I don't think anybody's going to really like share my iPad around at a funeral. So I think that, like, having original art framed is like G status. And yeah, I mean, you can't see my studio, but like right in front of me is original Kevin Eastman's, original Jay Lee. You know what I mean? Like, I've got originals all over the place because I study the original art and I learn how their techniques work. And then I recreate those techniques in my own work. And I'm sort of like a self-taught comic artist, despite 16 years of hanging out with a Kubert graduate doesn't hurt. You know what I mean? You pick up a lot of knowledge from a Kubert grad.
There's a lot of value to actually having the original art in your hands rather than getting a print or just you know, looking at it on a computer screen. I'm a big believer of actually valuing that more personally. On top of actually monetary value, I think original traditional art is worth more than, you know, printing out a digital 11 by 17. But who knows where it's going to go?
I mean, if you look at the NFT failure, and then you look at museums like the Louvre, like, it's pretty obvious that original's never going to go away. Digital is fast. The deadlines are getting quicker. You know, I've heard that, like, at the big two companies, if you can't do it by a certain date, they don't have a problem with it. They'll just put somebody else on it. And that's why a lot of people are moving digital, because it's all right there. You don't have to draw the city. You can just digitally bring the city in, posterize it, make it look like a comic book drawing, and you're out. You know what I mean? And that's, if you're only getting paid $60 a page rate, like, you've got to do them fast. You might have to do 2 or 3 pages a day on a comic book to make enough money to live off of in America. And so you better be doing it digitally, and you better be doing it fast, or you're not going to have a job. A
Well, it works
lot of,
great for disposable art, I guess, right? If you're working,
yeah, like sticker designs and T-shirt designs, I'll do digitally. I'm just not a huge digital fan. Again, I'm an original art collector. I'm a special effects guy who uses his hands, and so having paper, pencil, and ink is just what I prefer. There's a lot of like benefits to digital. If you make a mistake, it's an easier fix. But again, like, I would rather the history of the work that I do be celebrated in physical form. Digital rocks. It's just not for me personally.
so I kind of have a good, strong feeling of where you actually stand on this. But I have to ask you, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. AI, as it exists today,
I
do you
think
find
AI
it
is,
positive? Do you find it negative? Do you find it to be a tool? Do you find
yeah,
it to be something that is going to be a big problem?
it's a tool, and you know, you know, I don't want to get too off track on it, but it's a tool, and so AI sitting there by itself with no one using it isn't a threat. Yeah, at first glance, but I think it's about the intention behind the use of the tool. And if your intention is to promote and project like a false aesthetic, like something that you're not, it will catch up to you and it will bite you in the ass. If you're using it as a tool to maybe, let's say, just generate rough ideas, you don't plan to publish or profit off of them, but you're looking for placeholder imagery in a working script that's not complete, with no money involved and no movie deal yet, like, yeah, use it to develop kind of like tangible things. But when you get down to the nitty gritty of it, like, it's a short-lived high. So depending on it is going to be a short-lived high with a short-lived response. People are still freaking out over, stuff that came and went because somebody created it and the fan base held on to it, and it comes around every 10 years and people like it again, whether it's a bad movie or a comic book guy that's, I don't want to get into naming names, but if it's an artist that people love to, like, kind of take a dump on, there's a fan base for that guy that is still selling hot. You know what I mean? So I would I would promote people make whatever it is they want to make and just enjoy where you're at with it and grow, then try to take a cheap way out and kind of like fill it in with the AI just to get it done and try to outdo everybody, because it doesn't, like, comics are here today, gone tomorrow, man. You know what I mean? Like, it takes me a year to draw an entire comic book and people read it in 3 minutes. So there's a use for AI when it comes to the sense of like throwaway art or generating binge material, but I personally don't have any use for it. Like, I just don't. You know what I mean?
So I'll add one question on top of that. So what do you think is a bigger threat, AI or overseas artists working for like $1.25 an hour?
Overseas artists. As an American artist, I have so much opportunity on my plate that I absolutely cannot sign on for, because I can't afford to spend the time on it with what it pays. So
Like
I'm
Fiverr?
very, like Fiverr. No, more like, what the page rate is for comics in America in the money translation to another country is like grand. You know what I mean? Like, what you
Mhm.
can, if like a lot of American guys are considering moving to Europe and to Latin American countries to work in comics full time, because you can live off of the exchange rate. So I would say that I don't consider overseas artists a threat. I consider us a global community. But there's a lot of Spanish artists that I'm really friends with now, because they're professional comic book artists and can make a living off of it. And like, I implore that the companies I work for hire certain guys that I think are good, because they can do the work and afford to do it, whereas, like, I can't. And so, that's why most of what I do is on covers and commission work, because to do an entire comic book at $60 a page, I mean, it takes me about 3 days to draw a page, if you want the art to be like banging, like Ryan Otley banging or Scotty Young banging. If you want it to be great, it's going to take me 3 days to draw it. If you want it to be garbage, I can do it in 8 hours, but it won't be. You won't enjoy looking at it.
Yeah, I mean, there's whole different levels of how quickly everybody could work and how intricate the
Yeah.
artwork could be.
Yeah, but I mean,
that's
like,
an aspect I didn't think of. I didn't think of a lot of artists that were here originally that moved out of overseas. That's something I haven't thought of. I usually associate a lot of the overseas artists with a lot of the artists that are using the little tricks of the trade, where they're using light boxing and tracing and
yeah. Well,
AI as well.
yeah, I mean, light boxing and tracing is technically it's a part of making comics. There's a lot of times when a page progression will require the same picture in each panel, and it's like showing you a beat. You know what I mean? If it's like Daredevil in the rain, like looking down at like a note,
Well, it's different if you do light box your own work. That's a little
Well,
different.
that's what I mean. Yeah, absolutely. I don't like to sell guys out who lightbox. There's a ton of times when I look at a comic and I'm like, oh, I can tell whose actress's face they used in that. I had this conversation with Jan Durasema at I hope I'm pronouncing the name right, the Star Wars artist on the Dark Horse stuff. She was complaining about the new Star Wars stuff using a lot of like auto trace to make the characters look like the actors, whereas like her Dark Horse run on Star Wars, it looks like Marvel Comics. Like she draws the characters. So yeah, I mean, like I think if you're using it to just blast out like a likeness, I mean, if it's what the job requires, then they're gonna make you do it. You don't have a choice. If it's your own stuff, you're cheating. You know what I mean? Like draw your own stuff. I mean, that's my perspective on it. It doesn't mean that somebody who traces or light boxes is evil or a bad person. It's a particular style. You can tell they're doing it right away if you're like savvy. But some people don't know the difference and love it and eat it up.
Are you happy that Kickstarter is cranking down on a lot of the AI work? I'm sure you've seen some of the recent actions that they're taking on work that they're deeming to be AI and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
They're not allowing it to go through, or you have to disclose it to some extent and that kind of thing.
I think it's a slippery slope. You know what I mean? If you let it in, then you let in something that you may never ever be able to get back out. And so I think every artist, if you've got 1 follower on Instagram or 1 million followers on Instagram, if you're making art by hand and you're making it yourself, if it's on an iPad or on paper or in clay or whatever, and I think people are putting their hearts and souls into their work and it shows. And I think that they're working so hard to do it and to survive in whatever economical geographic structure they're in. I don't think you should let in anyone who's fast tracking the process to debilitate against all the people who are busting their ass at whatever level they're at. You know what I mean? Because it's already competitive enough. Now you're going to allow, and I'm not anti-AI per se, but when it comes to comics and it comes to film and it comes to creating and hiring specialists and artisans who make things, I think it should be like kind of held at the door. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, gotta be this tall to ride this ride. You know what I mean? Or you got to work this hard to be a part of this. Because everybody's busting their butt.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Is Kickstarter your go-to, or have you used all the other crowdfunding platforms as well?
I personally like the limitation of the 30-day Kickstarter thing. I like it to be like a countdown. I wouldn't want it to just sit there for 2-3 years until the money gets in. But I mean, I had a good experience with it. Shipping with COVID and shipping costs going up, it kind of became like very difficult. Luckily, we were able to get in under the wire with this book. Which that is a McFarlane homage to Amazing Spider-Man, of course. But this Living Corpse, yeah, this issue. So after we did this one, which was awesome, we were like, that was a lot of work. So I like one shots. I like comics that just beginning, middle, end, done. If it has a cliffhanger, cool. You can kind of leave it open. But I like one shots because a lot of people at a con, when they're buying my stuff and they've never heard of it or they're into it, they're really worried about where to pick up. And so I like to just do one-off stories that are closed. Yeah, and the 316, actually, this book, we didn't really know what to do next. We did the movies. We've done 2 6-issue miniseries, one with Zenescope, one with Dynamite. We did a 6-issue miniseries Kickstarter. I was like, what's next? And so we couldn't get any attention from any of the companies. Nobody was really giving us the time of day. And so I had a friend who years ago introduced me to David Michelinie, writer and co-creator on Venom, Carnage, Taskmaster, War Machine, Scott Lang's Ant-Man. I mean, the list goes on with
Yeah, he's got
Michelinie, if
quite
you're
a
familiar with the
resume.
work. So anyway, this guy I knew. I'm a comic collector. I have a decent sized collection, and this dude I was friends with was a collector who knew Michelinie. He introduced me to him in, like, I want to say 2012, and it was a great experience. He was really, really cool. We told him, we were huge fans of Venom, and he's a really nice guy, and he was local to me. I didn't know. He's an older gentleman, so he doesn't come out a lot, and he kind of dipped away from the public eye for a while. I'm sure he has his reasons, but when the Venom movie came out, he came back out of kind of retirement, and he was doing a signing at a local comic shop, and the guys that run the shop were like, "Hey, we're having David out. Do you want to come hang out and, like, sketch while people wait in line to get their book signed?" And I was like, "Sure." And I haven't seen him in years. I'd love to see him again. And as soon as I went and saw him again, we picked up right where we left off, and we were about ready to do another Kickstarter, and I was like, "Hey, before the event starts, are you for hire?" And he laughed, and he was like, "Well, I'm always working." And I was like, "Okay." And I was like, "Well, we'll pay you whatever you ask for. We're thinking about bringing you in to write the Living Corpse for us, because we're kind of like, we don't want to do what we've done before. We want to do something different every single time we do something." And so bringing in him as a guest writer, it was just like, it reinvigorated us. And so naturally, to me, he is one of Marvel's quintessential character creators or co-creators. And so we were like, well, if you're going to write an issue of the Living Corpse for us, we want you to create a character, like, for the universe of it. And so we used it as an opportunity to create a character named Mac Hex, who's like a ghost detective. And again, lending inspiration from Bruce Timm and Batman animated series, The Gray Ghost. We created that guy there. But and then if you ever get this book for me, it's a flip book and has a sketch blank on the back, which is always fun. But anyway, so yeah, working with
That's
David was
interesting.
great.
You actually made a double cover that has a sketch cover on the back. I don't
Yeah,
think I've ever seen that before.
and that's the thing, man. Like, we don't really spend a lot of time.
So you're not a
following
big fan
trend.
of variants.
I love variants, and this is the second printing on this book. So the first printing had like 3 or 4 variants, but I didn't like the printing on it. I didn't like the paper, and so we wanted to redo it. And so we did the homage cover, which at the time people were fiending on homage covers, and so we thought that'd be fun to do. Yeah, so we did the flip because we love to do sketches. I don't want to go on a tangent about it, but in 2005, when we published The Living Corpse, it was actually called The Corpse. And at the time, no one knew the book. No one could give a crap about it. And to get people to come to our table to check it out, we had a sign that said free sketch. And so there's an issue of our book that has a red logo that just says The Corpse. And it was a blank cover with the blue line border. And that was in 2005. And we had 500 copies of it and sold out of them within a year because of the sketch op on the front of the cover. Now, we kind of swiped the idea from Billy Tucci on She, because we had
Smart
seen
work. Smart idea. A lot of work, but a smart idea.
Yeah, well, we had seen Billy do it in the 90s on his She ash can, and I just thought it was the coolest thing. And like, I didn't really see anybody doing it at the time. So you're looking at like maybe 10 years later. And Ken was like, yo, what if we do a blank cover that we can sketch on? And I was like, I love it. And so we did it. And then, I'll go out on a limb and tell you how it went down. One year at Baltimore, I might be butchering a name, Brian Pulido, the creator of Lady Death,
Yeah.
came to the table, was like, oh, what are you doing? And I'm like, oh, well, when you buy our book, like you get a sketch. And he was like, wow, that's really cool. I was like, do you want one? You know, like I'm a fan of your stuff. And he was like, no, 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 I'm good. So he kind of like walked away after being really interested. He kind of like dismissed it. And I was like, didn't think anything of it. And then within like a year, Marvel put out a 100 Spider-Man sketch cover project that they credited Brian Pulido with for the idea. So this is what I'm talking about when you've got an idea. You got to be careful because you think you're having fun and you're doing something cool. And within 6 months, somebody with a bigger name and a bigger following likes your idea, does
Somebody
it
snatched your
themselves,
idea.
and they snatch it, man. And you can't fight them on it. And now you have an entire industry of people who are making a living, I guess, off of just doing sketch covers. So
That's interesting with you
I'm
and
not here to claim.
Polito.
I'm not here. Yeah, I'm not here to claim that we created it because we swiped it from Billy. You know, God bless him. He's an awesome dude. He's super cool, doing his thing. He's killing it. He's at all the shows. But like, we kind of brought it back. Thought it was fun, and it became like this little kitschy, cool thing we were doing. And then it just took the fuck off. And then Ken ended up in, 6 or 7 years later, getting hired by Dynamic Forces to do basically sketch covers every day. You know, he makes a living doing them now over at DF. So it's kind of weird how like a cool little idea that was kind of like a grab, like stuck. And now you're seeing an entire industry like that is like hampering on it. Like quite literally, Eastman, when he does a turtle blank, pretty much gets like all of the blanks and like he runs his business out of it. And to get a Ninja Turtle blank is actually super difficult now because there's such a demand for the blank cover. And like I just kind of sit back like a proud dad and watch all these blanks come out. And I'm kind of like, yeah, I remember 17 years ago, you know what I mean, when we had the only blank, but it's cool. I've benefited from blanks being done on a lot of books, So
Well, it was a genius idea, and especially the fact that you put it, you had a like this one. You have the regular cover on the front and the sketch cover on the back, which
Yeah,
I really don't think I've seen that before.
Yeah, we've done it a couple times. You know what I mean? Now the book's upside down the other way, but you can still present it like however you like to see it. So if you were to get this graded with a sketch, you could hang the sketch on your wall, and then if you're sick of looking at it, you put the regular cover back up. So this is what I mean. Like, I don't spend a lot of time following the trends. I just spend a lot of time living in my studio, creating, hanging out in life, and taking inspiration from things that I don't see being done. And then I try to do them. You know what I mean?
You just mentioned graded. When somebody comes to you, because I've been asking the question to a lot of artists lately. First of all, if somebody buys something from you, do you charge your signature extra?
Nah, I'm not that popular.
Well, they're buying it from you too. That's a different story.
No,
If they,
yeah, I mean, I'll sign
else.
I'll sign anything for free. You know what I mean? And I'll probably stay that way for a while. And Bernie Wrightson died that way, and Bernie's one of my favorites, so I'll probably stay that way.
Wrightson's great.
Yeah.
And if somebody tells you that I want to witness so I could go get it graded by CGC after that, do you charge a different charge because of that?
No, and the reason why I don't is because my stuff is so low print run, and I'm still in obscurity as a creator. I don't really feel the need to charge. You know what I mean? Now, when we did the
do you feel it's justified if you're charging 10, 25, whatever you're charging for your signature? Do you feel it's justified to double or triple the amount just because it's CGC certified?
I do, in the respect that if the collector resells the book, there's a major profit there typically. And so like creators got to get it where they got to get it before it's out of their hands. You know what I mean?
Well, how do you know that they're planning on doing that?
I am a collector, you know what I mean? And people eventually sell everything, you know what I mean? Like they eventually flip or trade, and so I think it's at least 50% of the community is doing that, in my opinion. Maybe I'm wrong, but I think and here's where I think it's okay. If you are David Michelinie and you're in your 70s, I think you should charge. I think if you've created all these characters and someone walks up to you with 100 copies of Amazing Spider-Man 300.
Oh, that's a different story.
That's what I'm talking about. I've seen that happen. I've sat next to him at cons, and people walk up with 30 copies of something, and he'll sign one for a donation and then make the person get back in line to get the other 10 signed, because he's watching the market flip on the signature.
Yeah,
a lot of guys.
I'm talking about a person coming to you with a comic and saying, I want to get it graded or whatever the case is.
I mean, I'm not going to charge, you know what I mean? But I mean, do I think it depends on the creator? Like, I think if you're a legacy creator and you're like in your late years.
Well, Liefeld is notorious for doing that.
I know he is. Actually, I actually have a X-Force 11 first appearance at Domino with a Deadpool remark on it. And when I asked him to do it, he was like, I don't do remarks. And I was like, I'll pay whatever you want. You know what I mean? I watched your Levi 501 commercial as a kid that Spike Lee directed, and I wanted to do comics because of your commercial. So I want the fucking sketch. How much you want for it? And he thought about it for a day, and then he hit me back with the price. And I was the first remark he ever did. And then he started the entire thing of doing remarks. So I think it just depends on who the creator is and looking for opportunities to earn. You know what I mean? Like, I don't like it when guys flood the market either. You know what I mean? Like right now, McFarlane is signing everything. Yeah.
It's a dicey. Well, Stan Lee used to sign everything too. Remember,
he would sign whatever you put in front of him. Yeah,
he'd sign a Batman if you gave it to him.
Absolutely, I've seen him sign Walking Deads.
Stanley had no problem signing anything, but
I know.
Yeah, but you know what? That's okay. If people want to have somebody sign by him, you know, if somebody personally, I don't think a creator should sign anything that doesn't belong to them. You know,
I agree. I agree.
I think there's a little bit.
There's stuff that people have brought to me that Ken worked on that I didn't work on, and I'm like, I didn't work on that. And they're like, well, you signed it anyway. I'm like, no, I didn't work on it. You know what I mean?
I also find it very offensive when a writer signs a book directly over like the best piece of art on the cover.
Yeah, it's a little bit like rock starry, you know, and they sign like over the whole thing. You know what I mean? It gets a little stupid. I think you should if you're going to be famous and you're going to be the guy and if you want to like get to a point where you get to sign a bunch of stuff, you better make a cool signature, and it better be a signature that you can read as well. And that's what I heard that from Jim Lee one time. He was like, don't sign anything you can't read, because then no one knows who the hell did it. And so that's another thing too.
He's got like the worst signature.
It's become the worst signature, but it started off well.
It's hilarious that he's actually saying that.
He said it years ago. Yeah, he said it in the 90s. So
I've got a couple of his signatures.
It's a
didn't a lot look good.
It's a slash. But I mean, I have an Alpha Flight 51, which is his first professional work, and it's a nice Jim, you know what I mean, Lee. But yeah. But like Frank Miller, for example, is so creative. His FM, his long F and M, like, you know who did that. You know what I mean? Like, and that's what I mean. Like, that's the sign of a genius in the comic book art form. You know, Eisner signed his name to look like Disney's so that it would, the fan base would correlate on it. You know, Simonson has the thing where it looks like a freaking dinosaur. You know, it's
he has a nice signature.
I always liked McFarlane's and Liefeld's. That was the generation I grew up in. So that's
McFarlane. I think from that generation has this, even to today, the best looking signature out of all of them.
He's a consummate artist, and so he's always looking at it, kind of like how I was describing.
There's some pride in it.
Yeah, he's taking every opportunity, at least in his heyday. He's taking every opportunity to do something that wasn't done before. And that's how he made his name. And if you listen to his interviews, his early interviews, and you read his early quotes and stuff like that, and a lot of stuff in his book, The Devil's in the Details. I don't know if you've seen that. It's a great book. He talks about rejection. He talks about people being like, they didn't like my art. They didn't like my style. And he just kept doing it his way. And eventually you find one guy that loves it, and you're on. You know what I mean? And that's what he did. Yeah.
It always takes that person to open up the door for somebody.
Well,
the public also talks.
Absolutely. Yeah.
If people love something, regardless of how against you are as a publisher or an editor, you're gonna have to, money talks at one point. And
yeah, I mean, his his spaghetti webbing is what they call it, spaghetti webbing on the Spider-Man. They didn't like it. The editorial was like, this is stupid looking, and this is not what the webs look like. And then as soon as that Spider-Man 1 came out and the posters were up in the comic stores, it was selling out. And it was at that point they were like, all right, you can draw the webbing like that. And that's the thing is like, if you're going to break ground on something, you're always going to hit resistance. No one is going to look at a brand new idea or a brand new band or a new sound of music or a new style and be like, sure, come on in. You know what I mean? Like there's always going to be resistance to it. And that's what we experienced creating our comic every single time was resistance. You know where we didn't experience resistance? With fans. And at the end of the day, it means more to me that a fan comes back and brings me this dog-eared comic that they've been passing around in their school or whatever, to sign that and give that kid free stuff. That means more to me than a professional in the business being like, you know, you have a nice book. You know what I mean? Like it's like, thanks. You know what I mean? But everybody has a nice book, in my opinion. So the kid that like loves it, the fan that's diehard, like that was us. That was me and Ken growing up. So when that's what keeps us going is that crowd. And I think that's what kept us pushing to make stuff. And I saw someone wanted something signed. I'll sign anything anybody wants if I can get it somehow. Yeah, just hit me up. I'm on every.
Well,
social.
you haven't been doing cons very often, right? You've been
I'm not
slowing
doing
down?
cons. I'm not doing cons because I'm making a lot of art. You know what I mean? Like at cons, they're distressing. You know, my 10 conversations at once, and you know, you're trying to make change, and like I don't really. I'm a one-man army, so like.
Well, I'm glad you did Baltimore because I got to get a sketch card from you there.
Hey, dude, I love Baltimore, and I'm a Maryland native, so you know, Baltimore is starting to get expensive, and like I'll be honest with you, you know, cons are expensive, man. You know, like anybody starting out, I feel bad for them because, you know, getting the table costs, getting the hotel, like you got to go all in, you know, and it's a lot. And so if you don't sell anything, like it's a bust. And the first 5 years of doing cons, we came home in the hole to the point where, you know, it was affecting my relationships. But it was like at the same time, like it was like a snowplow. Like you have to keep pushing. You know what I mean?
Were you happy with the turnout at Baltimore?
Saturday was great. Yeah, Saturday was great. And
Saturday was okay. I don't know if I would call it great. It was okay.
For me, it was. You know, I did fine. You know what I mean? Like I don't want to be like, again, I'm a one-man show. I kind of do my own thing, and so, you know, if I have freaking 10 or 12 sales, like that's solid. The thing is there's 3
But
shows a
Sunday
weekend.
sucked ass. I mean,
And I bailed. I
They
wasn't
didn't even
there.
think about the fact that they had a Ravens game going on. Like,
And
yeah,
again, dude, yeah, again, like I've been doing cons since 1996, and I did 10 cons a year for 17 years. So the heyday is gone, you know, and now the market is so saturated that everyone is paying to play to be there. And it's you got to pick and choose which shows you want to do that are lucrative. You don't really have a lot of like ability to lose, you know. And so for me, like if I'm not a guest, I'm not going.
it sounds like Lisa has got a connect with Barlow. So
Awesome. Yeah, I'll be happy to sign and sketch anything anybody wants. I ship things bomb proof. You know what I mean? I've had so many damages. Like you're not getting my stuff damaged. It's going to come solid.
I'll tell you something. Anybody that gets our original piece of art from Buzz, I don't think they're going to be disappointed. I think you've seen. I have a couple of your original pieces I've posted in the past in 11/17s, 11 by 17s, and
okay.
It's beautiful work. Really
Thank
beautiful
you. Yeah.
work.
I still have a lot of fun making it, and so I'm not really running from con to con to catch up with everybody. I'm home drawing. You know what I mean? Like I just finished this cover here. It's My Bloody Valentine, the movie.
That's pretty badass.
The minor, you can the details and stuff. But yeah, like You know, that's my whole room is filled with this shit. It's because comics are like a production thing. So as soon as you, like I said, you're either at a con or you're making comics. Like you can't do both at the same time. You know what I mean? I got a print coming out next weekend at a horror con because I'm a guest, and it's a Swamp Thing, Jason from the 2009
Oh, that's
Friday the
that's
13th remake.
commission or a print that you
No,
did?
that's
you did just for the print.
That's the original line art, and then the print is fully colored by Menio Color on Instagram. Is another Spanish guy. It's awesome. It's a $10 print, man. Like I don't sell like $100 lithographs. You know what I mean? Like art's supposed to be enjoyed. Original art obviously costs a lot more, but my stickers, my comics, and my prints are always very affordable. You know, and if you're under 14 years old, I'll give it to you for free. Like I don't even care. I'd rather you enjoy it. It doesn't do me any good sitting in a case in my house. If I do a consignment thing, I never see the money. If a publisher publishes my book, I never see the money. So I make a lot of things myself because I can see, like Kickstarter was great because it's the #1 way to invest in yourself. You're investing in you and your creative thing. I could probably sell another comic book idea to a comic book company. I don't know that I would want to. I don't want.
Wow,
I
it
don't
sounds
want
like
to deal
you're one of these guys that are not pissed off at the world, which is becoming more of a rarity for somebody that's been in the business for a while.
I'll tell you why I'm not, and it's because I grew up around guys that were. You know, like every comic creator I ever met as a kid, it was disappointing.
Have you noticed how angry a lot of them are? Like they're so mad.
Dude, they're all mad because they didn't reach that Image Comics status. And the thing is like it was a unique time when creators were always getting the shove from companies. And Mike Manley told me once, he was like, if they did it to Kirby, they'll do it to anyone. And that, like these philosophies that I would pick up on hanging out with people, whether it was Savini or a comic guy, every bit of the philosophy and wisdom, I would come back, I would recalibrate my mission, and then it would reinvigorate me to whatever the next thing I was going to do was going to be. And chasing some dream that doesn't exist is how these guys got angry. And a lot of them are angry because they've been plagiarized. Their artwork has been resold, repackaged. I mean, I'm pretty sure when the original Venom craze happened before the movies, Marvel repackaged the Venom material and only put McFarlane's name on it, not Michelini, on the cover. And I know that set him back, you know, and that's kind of what the industry does to people. It kind of like sucks young creators up and then puts them on blast. They have a lot of fun. They realize, oh, the popularity is not worth how much work is still involved in making comic books. It's so much work. And you have to fall in love with the process and the work to make a good product. And if you're caught up in the hype around being like a hot artist, then like that's where the anger comes in, because like it's a nepotistic industry. And so you're not going to get the fair shake you deserve every time. I don't know a lot of people that do. And those that are getting it have probably been in the business for 30 or 40 years. Like they're not new. You know what I mean? Bob Schreck was an editor on Kevin Smith's Green Arrow from DC. And I had the ability to listen to a talk from him in Chicago one year. And I think it was like 2000. And he was like, it's going to take you 10 years to be the new guy in this business. And I was like, damn, that's a long time just to be the new guy. And I was like, well, that's what I want to do. This is what I want to do. So I'll do the 10 years. You know what I mean? And within 2 of pushing and being creative, I had a movie deal and I was publishing my own stuff. And you start moving and shaking on things.
Paying your dues, basically.
You got to pay your dues. I don't think paying your dues will pay off in ways that people think. But if you look at it optimistically in a grander view, you will see where, oh, well, you know, I got this opportunity and then this went well. And then I was showcased over here. And And it's like, you know,
Well,
'cause-
let's look at it from this perspective. Have you ever done any work for DC or Marvel?
no.
Okay. If they knocked on your door tomorrow and said, "Hey, Buzz, we want you to do this book. I don't know, some offshoot Avengers book, and we want you to do it front cover and interiors, and we're going to pay you shit for it." Are you open to doing that or no?
I mean, it would depend on the scenario. I would have my entertainment agent immediately get into contractual negotiations about what was going to happen because of it. I wouldn't just willy-nilly sign up for it over the enthusiasm.
Well, you're at another level compared to a lot of the other people that are brand new. But let's say it was year one of your career.
I would do the work. But going into it as a fan of comics, as a fan of the history of comics, and as a fan, like my comic book collection is organized by creator, not by title. So as a fan of creators and listening to their stories for decades, I would know going into it that A, it was going to be nothing but hard labor and hard work, no matter how fun the character was to draw. B, there's a really good chance that if it takes off and does well, the artwork will end up on merchandise that I will see no money for. C, you can expect to not get comps, maybe 3 copies of the book. And you got to figure out the contract around if you get to keep the original art. You know what I mean? Like,
But
there's
do
a
you think
lot
by
of
working on a major title that has a larger print run is
I mean, I think it's a
better or
plus.
worse for your career?
No. I think it's good for the career. I think it's good for anyone's career. But I'm here to tell you that it does not solve all your problems in life by getting on the book. Like, the amount of hard work you're doing to get the opportunity is going to continue double into the book that they put you on. So it's not like, easy street, I'm on an Aquaman now or whatever. It's not like that, man.
No,
They don't
definitely.
even want to. They don't even want to pay Frank Cho what he wants to draw Wonder Woman. They told him, you should draw Wonder Woman because you should be honored to draw the character. Well, I don't know if you've seen his artwork, but he's pretty amazing, and he should get
It's pretty
paid what
damn
he's
good.
at. He's amazing, and the book will sell out because of him, and he knows that. So you have to pay him what he wants, or you don't get to work with him. And that's why within the last 10 years, the new thing is having an art rep to go argue this deal for you for, and then those guys take 35% of your total. So I, after 17 years of pushing this shit, went and showed my portfolio of Living Corpse stuff that me and Ken did to Scott Dunbar, who's editor at IDW. And he is a legendary editor. He has discovered a lot of talent. And in a portfolio review with him in Baltimore last year, I was in line with 20 guys, and they were all, busting their butt to get there. And, he wasn't holding back. He was trashing one guy and telling another guy he needed work. And then when I went and showed him our work, which I was expecting him to trash, he didn't trash it. He thought it was awesome, which I was blown away by, because I'm always waiting for the negative comment, because as a comic book guy, there's always somebody who's going to hate your shit and tell you drew something wrong, and you got to deal with that stuff. You know what I mean? If you can't deal with that, then don't do it. You know what I mean? I'm okay with criticism. I'm okay with criticism because I played sports and I had a military father, and constructive criticism is how you grow. Other people, it breaks them. You know what I mean? And I think a lot of times getting criticism on your work, editors are trying to break you. And so
it's one thing to trash fundamentals and technical aspects of the art.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But the actual art itself is really subjective to who's looking at
absolutely, man. There's stuff that people love that I'm like, I'm not a fan. You know what I mean? But they're doing what they're doing. But yeah, when I got the portfolio review and it went well, Scott immediately sent me to a guy who right now is one of the bigger art reps for some of the biggest names in the business. And I was like, wow, you want me to go to this guy? And he was like, yes, tell him I sent you. And I went. And because art reps are the new thing, to get better deals for creators, it has to bring in a middleman to manage it, because artists kind of get taken advantage of. And that's probably why these old guys are grumpy, because they didn't have the art rep back in the day. I don't even have an art rep. I'm repping myself. But when I went to this guy to be like, hey, you know, so and so sent me to you. You know, he was too busy to take me on, and it's like after 17 years of busting my ass, I still don't have an art rep. I don't even care if I get one at this point. I'm just doing what I'm doing. But yeah, a lot of these guys have them, and so they can go back to the drawing table and crank out sketches, crank out remarks, crank out pages, whatever, crank out projects. And then this dude, somebody reputable will represent you to these companies. And so that's like a new thing that like even people
I
in
assure
Hollywood,
you, I assure you, as soon as you get optioned again for one of your IPs,
yeah.
they're going to be knocking down your door. That's typically how it works.
Yeah. And you know what? I probably would be, if I have an IP that blows up, I'll probably be too busy working on it to work with them. You know what I mean? You're right. DC should be honored to get Joe.
Yeah.
I agree with it totally. Another Maryland artist. He's phenomenal.
Yeah, Joe's
Yeah,
great.
it is like it is, and you can't trust some of them, and some of them take more money than they should. You know what I mean? Like me and Ken talked about it. We thought, I heard 35% was the going rate. I think 15 is doable, but like you just don't really know about a lot of guys. Yeah, exactly. Like you never know what's gonna hit. Sometimes like a goof like takes off, and that's just how it is.
Yeah, it happens like that. So, who was the
Yeah.
most disgruntled, angriest person you met from comic book creators? There's got to be one guy.
In my
Or girl.
experience, it was Arthur Sweetum, the Marvel Zombie guy, because as a
You
fan,
caught that too? He is so
Yeah.
freaking angry.
yeah, well, he doesn't do originals. He sells lithographs, and he's an older artist who studied under Frazetta, and he thinks that should be enough to give him this like zombie king status. And the thing is like
I thought he was kind of an ass.
well, I mean, I think he is too, but digitally painting over established covers, and it's kind of like hackish. And so I think the industry like didn't quite. I don't think the fans were blown away by the work, but I don't think the industry was that blown away by him. And he kind of like started self-proclamating kind of who he was, and I went over to him as a fan, and you know, I was like, hey, you know, I want to get you to sign a book or whatever, and he was all cool. And then he was like, what do you guys do? I was like, oh, we're like 5 tables away from you, and we have our own comic. It's like about a zombie or whatever. And we didn't get into it because I don't really want to sell myself to another creator. I'm there to get their book signed for me. And dude, he got up and walked away in the middle of the signature, didn't even complete it, and left. He was so mad that someone was a comic book creator that was doing something zombie that was standing right in front of him. And I'm like, who gives a shit, dude? Like, I don't know.
The fact that you came and as an artist and asked him for his signature, that's like offensive.
It's just, yeah, I mean, it's kind of like, you know, like an older actress being upstaged by a younger actress or something. I don't know how he took it, but like, I don't know. I had all the best intentions. You know
Well, let me
like,
tell you something Bush League that he did. Listen to this. This actually happened in Baltimore, the one that I met you in. I was sitting next to him. I was actually, Val Semix was right next to him. I was talking to him about something else, and I was listening. This little kid went with his mom and he must have been like 12, 13 years old, all into zombies and stuff like that. And he had a stack of books over there that he was selling along with his prints. And they were all mixed books, I guess, that he's had covers on Marvel Zombies or whatever the case is. Mm-hmm. And the kid picked out one, and the mother said, "How much? How much can we do this?" So he pulls out a freaking phone and starts looking up the values from eBay.
What a jerk!
Yeah, he's like, "So, all right, so this just sold for this much, so I'm going to charge you this much, and it's going to be another, I don't know what he said, $20, $30 for the signature on top of it."
Yeah, I mean, he
ended up wanting like $130 for his, like some like I don't know what the hell it was. It wasn't like nothing special.
No, the thing is, and that's why that guy is charging those prices, because he's not getting a lot of work. He's not blowing up. He's not passionate. He's a parasite on the industry. He's doing homage cover, painting digitally over top of other people's covers, and so it's kind of like, you know, kind of grimy, you know what I mean? And that's
kind of assholey. That's basically.
I mean, I'm trying to be delicate around it, you know what I mean? And the thing is,
that's all right. That's why I'm here.
if I was the kid's parent, I'd be like, "Oh, that's too much for us. We're not buying that," and I
Well,
would
that's what the
throw it
mother
back.
said,
Yeah, I would throw it back his way, like your prices are too high.
and he got no
And
sale out of it.
you don't hear a lot of people talking about him. He has a history of stealing tables at conventions and photoshopping his line to be longer. Like, it's like, come on, buddy. Like, and I don't know. He's a different generation too. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I'm more of a '90s kid who has passion for it for the love of it. If it doesn't sell, if I have one reader is better than zero readers. You know what I mean? I can sell 100 of anything today, and I'm happy with that. I don't have to sell 100,000 of anything.
You're definitely right, though. I think it's because of that situation, because of the fact that I guess he has let's call it an abrasive type of character. He's not
Mhm.
getting the work, and he's trying to gouge wherever he can at this point.
Yeah, and the thing is, the industry is smaller than it looks, and word spreads fast. And so, if you have a history of being a piece of shit, everyone's going to know within a couple of years. It's not going to take long. There's a bunch of guys out there right now who are dangerously close to being canceled. You know what I mean? Because they're just not trustworthy. They rack in 30, 50 grand on crowdfunding and don't pay artists, and you know it works for a while. It's not going to work in the future. You know what I mean? It's just not going to
So
fly.
we established your most assholey creator meeting. Who do you think is the most influential person that you've met that you actually got to meet?
Working with Michelini, hands down, has been the number one experience for me. Getting to work with a legacy Marvel creator with the lineage that he has, and bringing him into our world, our universe, and into our families and into our homes has been. This guy was writing Swamp Thing before I was born. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, he's got to be a wealth of knowledge.
he's just, to me, I call him the working man Stan Lee, because he is a legacy creator. I mean, quite literally, Venom is probably in the top 3 to top 5 characters for fandom. I mean, people don't even know much about the character; they just love the goofy monster Spider-Man guy, and like I don't know, working with him, he's not even an artist, but working with him, for me, like, now I don't need to work for Marvel. I brought Marvel to me. You know what I mean? Essentially.
That's a
And
great way to
not
look at it.
it's not a cocky way. It's just how it went. And looking back at it all, I'm like, wow, like, I got to work with a guy that wrote a comic that I grew up on, and I never would have been able to fathom that back then. And so, for it to come full circle like that for me, I could never make another comic again and die happy.
So I usually ask people who your dream creator to collaborate with would be. I'm assuming is Michelini the dream
He was
creator
he
for you, or is there
he
somebody else that you would want to work with as
he,
well?
he was one for sure. He was one early on for sure. I never really looked at it as getting to collaborate with a comic book legend writer. I always looked at it like, well, the dream would be to get to work on certain characters. And now, as I've done my own stuff, published my own IPs, did everything DIY, made the movies, whether they were good or bad, looking at it now is more like, um, getting the positive portfolio review from Scott Dunbar, like working with Michelini, like working with Legacy Career. Like, these are things that actually were the bucket lists for me that I didn't know. I didn't know they were the bucket list until they happened. If I would,
Is there an inker or a colorist that you would love to have take a stab at your work and
you know
see
what
how
I
well
really
you do?
do? You know what I really do? I actually, and I wish I could pull them off the walls, but I love to have other creators draw my character. So that's what I'm kind of into. I have a sketchbook with, like, probably 100 sketches in it, and the last 20 sketches in the book are all done by bigger names in the industry, and it's all their take on our
That's a
character, Living
great
Corpse.
idea. I would love to see
Yeah.
what that looks like.
Oh, dude, they're real. I might have the book around here somewhere. Hold on a sec.
Oh, if you could, I think that would be a treat for all of us.
All right. Here's a good one. You brought up
Well, let's
Perez.
make you big. Hold on.
There's Perez's Living Corpse.
George Perez.
Yep.
Gorgeous.
R.I.P. There's a bunch of great guys in here. There's a
And he
really
was a nice guy, right?
I mean, he is a lovable person, and he knew what he was doing in comics was touching people's lives, and at near the end of his life, it was really seeing that. And I think that at the end of the day, that's the most you can ask for, you know.
I mean, how could you hate a guy in a Hawaiian shirt?
All right. We were talking about Billy Tucci earlier. There's a Billy
I love
Tucci.
Billy. Yeah, he's like one of my
Sketch.
favorite. He's an OG.
He is an OG, man. He's an
Can we
OG
see that again?
independent too.
Billy Tucci's version?
It's a little inaccurate. Some of these guys kind of bust them out quick at a con. They don't really look at the character, but typically Corpse has the underbite, so his top teeth don't show a whole lot.
It's got a very hobgoblin type of vibe
Yeah.
going on over there.
I'll show you. I got Bagley to do one.
But Tucci, I consider one of the OGs from self-starting indie creators.
Absolutely, yeah. He's definitely one of them. And even though, Polito kind of swiped our sketch idea, Chaos Comics, again,
Absolutely.
another independent successor that, broke ground on doing dark, scary comics that were, much more dangerous than what was coming out. And so I'll always give these people a nod, I'm trying to read the question.
Seems to me an artist who creates, understands the anatomy of the posture and poses and proportions is huge for people nowadays and are critical. No, not necessarily. There's a lot of artists out there that have like wacky work that is not anatomically correct.
So the argument
is really popular.
Yeah, well, the argument on it is it believable? You know what I mean? Like Barry Windsor Smith, who did the Conan stuff, is very anatomical, right? Very musculature and everything he drew. And those muscles don't exist. And I read a lot of interviews with Will Spertasio, who I have a sketch from as well. And he was like, the muscles don't have to be like scientifically accurate. They just have to look, they have to look believable. And so understanding muscle and dynamics before you just sit there and draw the whole character, you've got to understand that, like, when you throw a punch with your left, where is the right hand? It's not forward, it's back. And so when you study movement, you start to figure out the gesture and how to make the dynamic. And so, a lot of the comic guys that draw, they're not just learning from comics, they're learning from sculpture, life drawing, things like that, studying light and shadow. And Bern Hogarth, George Bridgman, these are anatomy professors at the School of Visual Arts that inspired Neil Adams, McFarlane, Jim Lee, all these guys. Like when you get into who your favorite creator is, and then you find out who inspired that creator, when you start to get down to the nitty gritty on like the chain of command on how to learn, like whatever it is you want to learn. Yeah, I mean, there isn't a style out there that I probably couldn't like predict what inspired it because I've just studied them all.
Now you have endless references you could go off of these days. So they have a lot of stuff to work on. But there's guys that are not anatomically correct that are very popular just because of their stylization.
It depends on what you're into. You know what I mean? Like Alex Ross's stuff is beautiful, and it's all from photographs and reference and custom costumes and pictures that he's taken. But like Frazetta made up all the imagery. He might have looked at a picture here and there, but he just sat there and painted it, made it up, and he's
the depiction of the fantasy artist.
And then you have like a
all fantasy.
You have like a Boris Vallejo who used reference photos and is just as influential. So it just depends on what you're into. I'm not hating on Perfect Anatomy, and I'm not hating on guys whose anatomy make no sense. It just depends on what your flavor is, like what you dig. Some guys love realism. They love the Brian Hitch. They love the realism in the book. I'm more of a Simon Bisley fan. Like I want it to be insane.
You just hit my favorite artist.
Yeah, I want the art to look like art. That's me though. You know what I mean? Like I like early Jay Lee more than I like new Jay Lee. You know what I mean? Like I like the old stuff. Yeah, Scotty Young's another one. He's incredible. Started the
you either love him or you don't.
Yeah. A lot of people don't like Scotty's stuff. They don't like the new style. They like the old style. I realize
I like his old style as well.
I like his old style too, but I realize what he's trying to do with the new style. he's trying to separate himself from the other cartoony guys by being even crazier. And so he's also a Sienkiewicz fan. I'm a Sienkiewicz fan. And when you get into the mindset of like John J. Muth and Bill Sienkiewicz and Dave McKeon, like you're looking at comics from a different perspective now. You're looking at comics from an emotional perspective. Yeah, Jay Lee's great in everything he does. I love the new Gargoyles cover he did. But yeah, it just depends on what you're into. And a lot of people's styles change, you know, and try different stuff. And, you know, like, again, art's subjective. So it just depends on what you're into. You know, there's some people who blow up as cover artists and they've never drawn an entire comic book their whole life. You know, they just haven't done it. You know, it's a lot of work.
Some people aren't built to do panel art. They're
not.
They just don't have the patience and I guess the aptitude to do sequential art. It's not an easy thing to do sequential art.
I couldn't do it until I started working with Ken, and as the Kubert grad, the osmosis of hanging together, I picked it up, you know, within our first 2 books. And so I was already kind of doing comic strips. And so I got like, you know, storytelling. But yeah, there's stuff that can be done. Like I think Wally Wood has a instructional sheet out there that's like the top 25 panels that work in every storyline, and it's pretty phenomenal. And I think Eastman has a copy of it like on his drawing board, like he looks at all the time. And so yeah, there's a science to it, you know what I mean? And like Will Eisner really is the Einstein behind it all, in my opinion. And there's guys that predate him, but Will Eisner's spirit and Will Eisner's like How to Draw Comics or whatever the book is called, or the Guide to Sequential Art, that book is much more valuable than say How to Draw Comics the Marvel Way. Now, How to Draw Comics.
You really are a student. You really are a student of the industry.
Yeah, I love it. I'm going to be looking at it, studying it, learning and growing in it on my own, whether anybody's paying attention or not. I'm a fan of it. You know what I mean? And it's like archaeology to me. You know, comics are an American mythology. I mean, not to quote my own publisher, but it is. Our mythological characters here are comic book characters. Yeah, I mean, there's stuff I see, you know, in film or actors and stuff that have like a cool look. Like I'm a huge Brandon Lee Crow fan, and you know, so if I draw anything dark, you know, I'm always thinking in terms of like Alex Proyas films, The Crow, Dark City. When it comes to
James O'Barr fan.
I love James O'Barr. Another guy doing it himself out of the back of a comic book store in the stock room, painting it however he wants to paint it. Every publisher told him his work was too dark and scary, and now they're remaking, you know, his films. So, you know, Tim Vigil is another one.
Hopefully, we've been waiting for it.
Yeah, I mean, I personally don't want to see like the memory of Brandon soiled, but that's just. I mean, I grew up on it, so you know, I don't always.
I mean,
like
something
remakes.
good. I don't want something shitty. We want something good.
Yeah,
Come on.
If it's good, it's good. If it's made to make money, it will be bad. You know, the sequels were not that great, and that's why it shows. But you also, you know, like the concept behind that storyline and how that came to be as dark came from a real place. And I don't think anybody should write any story about anything that they don't know about. You know, like you need to know about the stuff you're into. You know what I mean? Zombie lore for me is huge. I've met Romero many times before he passed. I've showed him The Living Corpse. My character's human name is John Romero. You know, so it's like we were recycling a lot of stuff, but at the same time, we were trying to make something new, our like kind of our version of it. And you know, that I made a comic about what I was a diehard fan for. You know, and I wanted to do.
Isn't it kind of sad what happened to George with the whole losing like not getting the copyrights and the trademarks for Night of the Living Dead when he
I mean, he had it originally, and then when they used a different font, they just didn't put the trademark in, and so it was just like a snafu that ruined it all. But he's another one that is, you know, a rebel. He's another rebel, man. Like didn't move to LA. You know what I mean? Made everybody come to him. And I don't know. I like guys like that.
Oh, I loved him, but I just felt it was sad that he had such a great IP that he couldn't that movie, he didn't make any money off of that movie.
Yeah. Yeah, it's tough to make money off of stuff. I mean, I think you have to make it for the love, and if it does well and it's got good timing,
Well, I
they
mean,
do
that
well.
one
But
did well. That's the thing. It did well,
yeah,
and he got burned.
yeah. I mean, they burn everybody, man.
Are you familiar with his son?
What are we talking about again? Oh, Romero. Yeah, a little bit more familiar with the daughter, the DJ. But yeah, no, I mean, he's another one that like was in it for the art. He was in it for the perspective. He was in it for the concepts. And so you're not business savvy, and you get took. You know what I mean? And like I said, what I say earlier, don't get into it unless you want to get took. You know what I mean? Like you're gonna get took. There's no way you're not. The question is if you can continue to do it and have the endurance and staying power and keep reinventing yourself eventually till you don't get took, which is exhausting. So it just depends on like what you want to do.
You know what I want to
Yeah,
do? I want to see the rest of those sketches in that book you're holding.
Oh yeah, I mean John Carpenter. When it comes to Halloween and Michael Myers, they're like, so how do you feel about another Halloween movie coming out? And his quote is "fuck you, pay me." Like he doesn't care. Like it's over. Like he did his thing with it. He just give him the money. You know what I mean? Yeah,
What's
I
your favorite
remember
Carpenter film?
Carpenter film.
Yeah.
It changes. Right now, it's like They Live in Prince of Darkness. But like I love
Oh,
them all. I love them all. I love
Prince
The
of
Fog. I
Darkness.
love The Thing. Yeah, Prince of Darkness is great. I would love to see a
That's
sequel
what I
to
don't
it.
hear very often. Prince of Darkness
I know,
was a
right?
good film.
Yeah, I think somebody commented that James was ruined over it. I
Yeah.
remember seeing him at a con like 20 years ago, and yeah, you could tell it was like ripping him up, and he dipped out for a while. He like disappeared for a while from it all. And then I guess you kind of feel forgotten maybe, and you
Jaded.
kind of like, yeah, you're kind of jaded, and then eventually you get over your anger. You know what I mean? If you're working at it, and you come back to it, you know what I mean? You come back to it with another crack at it, But again, like making a comic is
That's my
hard,
movie.
so he would have to really like have something he needed to say, I think, to do it again.
Dude, listen, anytime you came to chew bubble gum and kick ass, that's a line that you need in a movie.
I mean, Piper wrote all those lines, yeah.
I love They Live. That by far is my favorite. I know it's campy, but I love the hell out of it. They Live.
I love They Live. I have a big They Live tattoo. I love They Live. It's funny how it all like comes around like later in life. Like no one liked House of a Thousand Corpses, and now it's being re-released in theaters. I don't know. I think like if you're a nerd and you love the shit, you see the good stuff. You pick out you discover the good stuff like right away.
Either it clicks or it doesn't click. That's the way I look at it. Like just like the trauma people. Either you like it or you hate it. I don't think there's any in between.
Yeah, like I'm a hard sell on a lot of new stuff that comes out. Like Mandy is really, really good. A lot of people don't want to see anything with Nicolas Cage, but Mandy is an incredible horror movie. It's psychologically psychedelic horror movie, if you will. It's out there.
I think Cage gets a bad rap.
Yeah, I mean, he's the only guy, from what I understand, in movie making who is down for anything.
And I don't know why there's something wrong with that. He's willing to put himself out there, try different stuff. Clearly, he doesn't have to.
Yeah,
but he does.
No, he doesn't have to, but he wants to. You know what I mean? Like he has a stage name, for Christ's sake. Like, he doesn't even use his real name. So, this is a guy who wants to be in everything. He wants to perform, and he wants to do. I'm not saying he's amazing, but Mandy was great. You know what I mean? And Wild at Heart, he was in. I thought that was awesome. And Renfield, I thought he did really good in Renfield too. You know what I mean? Like, it just depends on, I guess, what it is. But
I'm just glad they didn't make the Superman film with him, because that he didn't. they didn't need that.
Yeah, that's a good example of like Hollywood getting like ahead of itself, like before it's really necessary. And, they kind of did it with the Batman movies, and they kind of got like too far from the concept.
Well, I don't know if you saw what he looked like in the Flash, because we got a little taste of that in the Flash.
I saw what he looked like in the documentary about the movie.
Yeah,
like they made a documentary about how that movie didn't happen and what happened to it. And, I don't know if it would have been bad. You know what I mean?
He's just not a believable Superman unless they went like the Adam West way with it. That's the only way I could see that working.
Yeah. I'll tell you, the one thing I learned about working with Hollywood people in movies is a lot of times I would say 88% of the time they don't have a freaking clue what they're talking about or what's cool. They just don't. They're just money people. That'd be funny.
Yeah,
Con Air is pretty good.
It was good. It was really good, actually.
Unbearable Weight is incredible. Probably his best movie of all time. Yeah.
So let's see what you're hiding over there. I've been waiting to see the rest of those sketches.
Yeah. Have you ever heard of let me see. Where do you see some of these ones I got? So there's a Linzer.
That's a different look. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I love the way through the hood, like over the face. This is a quick Mark Bagley from the Spider-Man.
He drew him a lot like the Goblin as well.
Yep.
I like it. I'm not a big fan of Bagley's work, but what I do like of him, I like a lot.
He's consistent. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
he delivers the same thing. Bob McLeod, co-creator of the New Mutants.
Really underrated, McLeod. Really
another underrated guy. I got to sit next to him at a show, and it was awesome to hear about the early days of making the New Mutants and kind of how like Marvel was kind of doing well at the time, and so they were bringing in people who technically were like draftsmen and didn't draw comics, and were teaching them to draw comics, and McLeod was one of them.
And he's almost at every con, McLeod.
He is now, yeah. Ever since the New Mutant movie came out, he's back around again. I remember talking to him, and he was kind of like, it's a Marvel, New Mutants, it's a Marvel thing. He's like, we were just the writer and the artist on them. I'm like, no. I'm like, nowadays, guys like you are going to cons as the co-creator of the New Mutants. And he didn't feel comfortable selling himself that way. And I was sitting next to him telling him while I was drawing the sketch, I'm like, if you don't sell yourself that way, you're selling yourself short.
Well, Eckersley will have no problem telling you that he's the co-creator of Carnage.
Who?
Eckersley.
Is that the artist? Because I'm pretty sure.
Emberlin, sorry.
Emberlin. Yeah. And that's a reach because, I don't know the story behind Carnage, but I know it's another Michelini character. So I don't know that Emberlin per se, maybe he drew him a certain way that added to it. I mean, yeah, he would probably do a good one. He would do a good one.
I'm sure it looked just like Mary Jane.
Yeah, probably would. He's another guy that won't do interiors anymore because they don't pay enough.
Well, he doesn't have to.
I mean, he doesn't, but he wants to. He wants to do interiors. They just don't pay enough. And, what he would require to do it because of his name, they're not willing to pay. Something has to go viral where fans are demanding him on a book, and then they'll discuss it. I mean, I know Capullo and Snyder fought with DC to keep Capullo on the death metal stuff because he was too slow. And the thing is his work is amazing. So, of course, it takes time. DC wanted to replace him. Snyder was like, no way. You replace him, you replace me. And they couldn't throw away the whole book. And so every guy, no matter where you're at, you're going to fight, to exist.
Very true.
It doesn't end. Yeah.
I think the key with the guys that are highly detailed and need extra time for their work, the key is either to put them on a miniseries where they're actually ahead in the schedule by the time they start printing. That way, like if they're printing issue 1, the artist is already on issue 3 or something like that in order to make sure they hit the deadlines.
You got to plan ahead. And a lot of times they don't. They don't. The good books, the good series that do well, they are planned ahead. If they bust something out, it's usually going to be junk. Or if they switch halfway through it, it's not tracking, and it just ends up being junk, and people cancel it on their pull list.
They don't understand. They're dealing with artists. They can't
and the thing is,
work.
Culturally, they think that artists are disposable. And the difference is that artists are people. And so they pick up on when they feel disposable and they go another way. And then there's always one more artist in line that's willing to do it for less for the clout, and then they get treated the same way. It's an endless cycle. And that's why you saw the huge move to crowdfunding, because they were tired of getting took. That's why the Image Comics thing happened. They were tired of getting took. They went and created. You were able to self-publish and print things with the rise in technology in the 90s, and they caught on to that, and they took their ideas and they left, and they went and created a juggernaut that like ran the industry for the next 10 years.
It's interesting though what the aftermath from that Core 7 is though.
And the thing is it's a Core 7 too. They keep trying to bring Kirkman in like he's a part of it, and he's not. Kirkman was in high school when they created it. He's not a founder.
No,
like he's successful because he rips people off and cuts out creators and doesn't pay them, and so you can rise.
Sounds like you love him.
No, I read Invincible. It's good stuff. I'm just saying that like what you do resonates through the industry, and so you can walk around the industry thinking that you're the top dog, but people aren't going to want to work with you eventually because you can't be trusted.
He does have that reputation that he has burned a lot of people.
He burns everyone he works with, and he got burned by AMC because Walking Dead is a Night of the Living Dead ripoff, and so you're a comic creator, you're not a director or a screenwriter, and so you might be like a showrunner, but there's guys with like 10 times the money you have that are telling you what to do, and if you don't agree with it and you fight them on it, now you're a problem, and now they slowly don't want to work with you. And then they bring Nicotero in, who is like Romero family at that point, and who knows zombies way better than Kirkman, and then they start edging him out. You know what I mean? And then the fans are like fighting with him in the letter column, and he's like being like a little Lord Fauntleroy about the whole thing. Like, I'm a fan. I read the book. I love Tony Moore's work. He's a great guy. He screwed Tony Moore, childhood friend of since they were 5 years old. You know what I mean? Like, what kind of person are you? You know what I mean? Like, to do that, like, just to get a leg up. And he did. And I just don't think that, like he created Skybound, so that he could run his own show. And it'll do well for a while. And, but, like, I don't know, man. How do you want to go to your grave? You want to go to your grave as a guy that fucked everybody over all the time? I mean, it's all coming out now about Stan Lee. Stan Lee gets his appearance in all these Marvel movies because Kevin Smith put him in it. And he's a lovable guy, and he's a chief emeritus of the whole thing. And, he took a bankrupt magazine company and turned it into Marvel, and then brought the Fighting American that Jack Kirby created on his own into Marvel, and then changed the name and put his name on it. I mean, Captain America was a creator-owned character. They just paid the Kirby great-grandkids $90 million because they were.
Well, Stan Lee is a little bit different animal, though.
It's a whole nother.
He was a mouthpiece, and he was also the face of comics for a long time. He did do a lot to promote and put not only Marvel comics in general, like in pop culture. Well,
he's not the first. William Gaines did it first from Tales from the
Definitely not.
Yeah,
definitely
Gaines.
Not the first,
Gaines
but he did well.
Started the comic thing. Stan, he went around cheerleading all over the country while everyone was at home busting their ass drawing the books. And so he kind of superseded in front of everyone, And the thing is, I think the reason why he did that was because, honestly, I think Stan was a bigger fan of the guys that were working for him than those guys knew he was. I think Stan was a huge comic book fan. I think he's a fan of Kirby, and so it shows in his enthusiasm around everything. I'm not hating on him. I'm just saying
it seems that way.
It's true. I mean, people like to kind of credit him with everything, and Ditko, the whole Ditko stuff is a whole another conversation, around how Stan treated his constituents, and Eric Powell has commented on it quite a bit.
Actually, let's look at. I'm curious what your thoughts about Ditko and Lee. Do they have? Does one have more right than the other as far as the creation of them?
No, it's an equal 50-50, no matter who does more work or not, because you're going into it on paper as a 50-50. But like what Stan brought to Spider-Man was different than what Steve brought to it, and what Steve brought to it was essentially a lot of personal stuff to it. Peter Parker is very much like his personality is very much Steve Ditko. Like they have similar backgrounds. You know what I mean? Like they're not bit by radioactive spiders, but growing up New York, growing up
Gawky kid,
picked on, geeky, and that's Peter Parker. That's Steve Ditko. And so, you know, even though Romita came in and perfected drawing Spider-Man for everyone that's alive today, you know, Ditko co-created it, and it took a long time for it to come around that Ditko did because, you know, Stan's cheerleading for Marvel kind of like superseded it all. And, you know, their names were together in the book, but like, you know, Ditko was a different bird too, man. Like I know a dude who I worked with recently who went to Ditko's apartment when he was alive and got his address and showed up uninvited and knocked on his door and handed him a $50,000 check for him to sign one comic book. And Steve was like, I can't do it. And he said no, because he's like, if I do it for you, I got to do it for everybody, and I'm not doing it. And he had like there's a really good YouTube documentary on it called In Search of Steve Ditko. It's hosted by Neil Gaiman. I highly recommend that viewing. And I highly recommend there's an Alan Moore one that's called The Mysterious Mind of Alan Moore. And that one will blow your mind on comics, the creation of them, how they affect society, where the ideas come from. Like Moore is a magician in the way he articulates not just his own work, but the culture of comics.
I haven't seen the Alan Moore one, but I know he is quite a character, so I'm interested in watching that.
He's more than a character, you know. He's a character for a reason. Like there's a reason why he is the way he is.
Well, he got screwed a lot.
Everybody does, dude. I keep going back to it. Don't do this job if you don't want to get fucked. Like, don't create comics unless you want to get screwed. I was okay with being screwed because I knew the history, and I still ate the shit sandwich and kept going. You know what I mean? Because I knew it was going to happen. I didn't not know it was going to happen. I was hoping that it wouldn't, but my expectation was that at some point along this line, I'm going to get fucked because they all do, and that's part of the story.
You basically went into knowing that you're going to have damage control at one point. And
you got to be willing to take losses, man. And maybe it's the skateboarder in me. You fall a bunch. What was the question again?
The Alan Moore documentary.
It's called like The Mysterious Mind of Alan Moore or something similar. But it's on YouTube. It's about 2.5 hours long. He starts to get into like weird topics about magic and being a magician and being an alchemist. And that stuff is very relative to how he goes into creating what he created. You know what I mean? Like they wanted him to write the Justice League, and he was like, no way. I hate that shit. I'm not writing anything where the guy wears underpants on the outside of his clothes. And so he created the Watchmen as like his antithesis to it. But he bookended it. It was 12 issues. It wasn't supposed to be something that went on for 100 years. Because he didn't believe in that shit. You know what I mean? But yeah, I mean, like digging into the creatives and who they are, what makes them tick, their ups and downs, their struggles. Like to me, that was 100% just as important to know about as it is on how to draw a comic book page. Like it was just as important to know who these people were and what they went through while they were doing it as I was going into it.
Well, you got to learn from history and from others.
You're doomed to repeat it if you don't. And I did repeat it, and I knew it ahead of time.
How much bad advice did you get? Like
none.
Pros.
I got
growing up.
all
You didn't
great
get any
advice.
bad advice from pros.
Nope. I got all great advice. Here was the bad part about the advice is that it was brutally honest. That was the bad part about the advice.
Well, that's good.
So no, it is good.
That kind of bad is good.
Like Walt Simonson looked at my artwork one time, and he looked at it and he didn't say anything, and that's never any good. And he was like, well, do you want me to lie to you, or do you want me to tell you the truth? And I think I was like 16. And I was like, well, I want the truth. And he was like, oh, okay, well, this isn't so good because of this, and this isn't good because of that. You need to do this more because like you can't tell the story part or whatever if you don't do it this way. And I was like listening. And then at the end of the constructive criticism, which was true, and it was all he was accurate about it all.
At least he gave a reason.
He went into what I was good at. So he complimented things as well as being constructive. And that's usually what I do for people. But like Neil Adams, before he passed, was notorious for ripping portfolios apart, like just destroying egos. And some people thought it was fun to go up and have him like shit on their work just to get a laugh out of it because they knew he was going to. I was too scared to do it, so I didn't do it. But there's many other people. Eric Larson shredded my stuff one time. So yeah, eventually somebody gives it to you.
Larson's tough.
Larson hates everybody. He hates everything except himself. And that's just how some guys are. They think that the self-centeredism and the propping up of themselves, that this great thing is the only way to hang. It's the only way to stay relevant. And the way to stay relevant is to be creative and put work out. He's also angry that, he didn't get a Savage Dragon movie. So, people aren't into it. You know what I mean? It works as a comic.
Well, it has to do a lot. I'm not even gonna get started into it, but he's added a lot of politics into his comics lately.
Sure, man. Yeah. And he ruined it. He ruined it for himself.
He went from being a smash mouth kind of comic that was just fun to read, to something that he's trying to put his own agendas out there, and it doesn't work.
Yeah, and the hubris gets involved. Like when these guys find success and they build a name for themselves and there's 300 people in line to get your signature, you start to feel like you can do no wrong. And then you start doing things that just don't work because you're out of touch.
I'll give this much. He's got a long-running indie comic that, not too many people could do it. I'll give him that much.
No. 100%. I was influenced by Eric Larson. Like I grew up on reading his Spider-Mans. I bought all the Savage Dragons. I actually like his style. His inking style is relative to Simonson, who I was a fan of. But like after you trash my portfolio and you're rude to me, I just sell all your books and I move on to another creator. You know what I mean? Like I'm not going to go back for punishment. Like it's obvious that you're not friendly, you're not fun to hang out with, and so you don't get mad about it. You just move on to someone else. There's 101 great creators to hang out with. Why keep going back to try to please the next guy? Yeah, I mean, while Alan Moore is alive, I would do anything you can to get as much out of that guy as you can because he's a gem. Frank Miller's another one. You know what I mean? Like Frank is pretty feeble, and people turn on creators all the time.
What do you think of Frank Miller's recent work?
I always like Frank because Frank did something in comics that had never been done before. He made them real. He made them much more real than they were.
Have you seen some of his recent work, the Wolverine cover that a lot of people have been talking about, or any of that?
I don't think I've seen the Wolverine one. I do have a Batman print from Baltimore he did last year. I do have some of his self-published stuff that just came out with Dan Didio. And I have seen a few things he's drawn, and I can see where people are saying it's slipping. I never thought he was a phenomenal artist. Sin City 100% is one of the most groundbreaking comics in the top 100 groundbreaking comics, in my opinion, based on visually the narrative and
very stylized.
He is all style. Miller is all style and swagger. I met Miller in '98 at a mall signing, and he was wearing the fedora and the fucking trench coat like he was a goddamn detective. And I'm like, this dude's playing the character. Like I got into that. I thought that was cool about him. I'm not saying that everything he's put out is 100% flawless. Ronin, when he put that out, didn't sell at all, and that was like a creator thing that he wanted to do. But
well, let me show you what everybody's been talking about. This is the cover that everybody's been talking about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it looks like a Frank Miller drawing to me. I would know that was Frank Miller from 100 feet away. You know what I mean?
Would you?
Now, yeah.
Based
on the awkward positioning. He's doing the awkward positioning on purpose. He's making it.
Well, that's what I said. People think it's because he's getting old and he's losing it.
I mean,
think he
maybe
did this on purpose.
A little bit about maybe the age thing is a little bit at play there, but he doesn't give a shit about drawing it to look like Hugh Jackman or David Finch. It's not him. He is an avant-garde person, and when you look up what the term means, you'll get it. You know what I mean? Like, it just depends on what you're into. There's a lot
So
of
you
guys
feel he
out
did that
there.
on purpose, right? I think he did it on
I
purpose
think
too.
some of it's age. I think some of it's age, and I think some of it is just he kind of like wherever his pen and pencil goes and whatever it makes, he kind of like leaves it where it is, and just like it's like first impressions are everything for him. You know, like other guys will erase and redraw and erase and change the hand and erase, and that doesn't look right. Miller's not really one of those guys. Miller's kind of like Sinkovich is like that, and they just do it, and that's what it is. That's
I
what
thought
it is.
his best work was on 300. Quite honestly, I love
Yeah,
that.
yeah,
The
300's phenomenal,
stylization.
man. Yeah, 300's phenomenal. I was at his 300 launch. That's where I met him, and 300 was great. And I don't think a creator can hit 100 for their entire life. You know what I mean? Like, I think if you hit 100 on 300 and you hit 100 on Dark Knight and you hit 100 on, Daredevil or whatever, like you just can't hit 100 on Sin City is 100. You can't hit 100 on everything. You know what I mean?
But that's what makes art great. It's
yeah,
never the same. If it was the
yeah.
same and you were a copy, if you were a Xerox machine and you just kept doing the same stuff over and over again, it gets tired.
I mean, there's guys that draw like that. Everything they draw is great, and it just looks like the thing they drew before.
But it gets tired. That's
some
the thing.
some people are safe with that. That's they're safe on that. I'm not that kind of guy. I am, people are like, oh, I love your style. I don't see it. I can't see it. I'm the one making it. Other people see it. You know what I mean? I don't know what it is. My style is my personality. Whatever my personality is that day on that piece is what the piece turns out like. For years I struggled with it, trying to have a style, and the harder I worked on it, the worse it got. So I started to
You
just
gotta
let
just
it
be
go.
you.
I just started drawing from memory. Obviously, if you're looking at Boba Fett's helmet, there's certain deviations in the cheek and the visor, and so you got to use a reference to get it right. But as long as it's close, I mean, if you look at like a Walt Simonson Darth Vader drawing, it's Darth Vader, but it's not like 100% accurate. It's more alien looking and weird, like that first Vader design they ever did. Like, so it just depends on what you're into. Again, I'm into comics for the crazy art styles. Like, I like very stylized creators.
Are you a fan of EC, early EC stuff?
Yeah, I mean, I grew up on that stuff. The reprints and the collected editions, and I love Ghastly, Graham Ingalls, and Jack Davis, and Wally Wood, and they are.
But you could tell, like in your work, there are some influences from those.
They're 100% in there. Yeah, and then it goes from those guys to like Mike Plug and Bernie Wrightson and Sam Keith and Tom McFarlane and Art Adams and Scotty. Scotty was at a place called Digital Webbing, and that's where I met Ken at. It was like an online comic book forum, and Corey Walker, the artist who created Invincible with Robert Kirkman, started there. Ryan Otley started there. A lot of guys that started at Digital Webbing. It was a really cool place for online creators before social media. And yeah, I mean, I like Eric Powell. I like heavily stylized guys. I like Kyle Hotz. There's a lot of style to it. I dig it, man. I dig people's styles on stuff. I like it when the artist is very signature, to what they do. And if you can spot it like a mile away, I'm usually a fan.
Well, I haven't shown anything of yours right now, so I might as well take this opportunity, since we're talking about stylization and your stuff, and show your latest project that that's going to be what, next week, right? It should be coming out.
Yeah, I have a bunch of covers coming out. Yeah, on some Night of the Living Dead stuff, on Hatchet.
You got Hatchet over here.
Yep.
I am getting House. Was it Hills Have Eyes vibes from this guy?
Yeah. That's Victor Crowley, the character in the horror movie series. Yeah, a lot of the stuff I work on is pretty low print run. It's pretty obscure. It's not popular at all. There's been a few covers that have made like top 100 lists and stuff like that, but mostly, being the makeup effects guy, when I got into comics before we created Living Corpse, I kind of wanted to do horror comics. That was kind of what I wanted to do. I really didn't want to do superheroes. I like Batman, he's dark, but You know, and so making the living corpse was basically, you know, the correlation of all that. And then now that we've done like 3 graphic novels and multiple one shots, and we did a shoe 2 years ago that was like designed based on the living corpse. We do whatever. We do a bunch of shit. And now that I'm not so much pumping out my own book, I'm looking to create with other people and on, you know, established horror stuff. And you know, the covers, like I said, I can knock those out pretty quick. So that's kind of what I spend my time on. Obviously, you know, in an American economy, the inflation is kind of hard on us to sit around and draw all day and not make money.
Is this your favorite time of the year to draw?
No, I draw every day.
No, I mean I mean just the Halloween theme and October. That's just
I think,
that.
yeah, I mean, I think I do a little better this time of year because of it, but I tend to pump this stuff out all year anyway, you know. But
So,
you know,
do we have a NYCC exclusive of this or something like that coming out?
no, unfortunately, we don't. I mean, I'm down for that, but that's up to my publisher, and I don't think the funding is quite there. It's very expensive to do New York
Are they
Comic
going to
Con. I
have
did it.
booth?
No, I don't think so. If they were gonna have one, you know, I might go up for a day, but I don't know. I did New York Comic Con for 7 straight years before Artist Alley was in another building. It was like on the main floor. And it's a little overwhelming to keep creative, like to navigate the con, to be at the con, to pay for it. There's a lot of effort. And so for me to do it again, like after all the years of doing it on our own, it would require someone else like making the arrangements. I mean,
Like you would
I
have
did.
American Mythology, for example, having a booth and you just like being a guest for them or
I
something
would
like
just
that.
show up and I would just crush sketches all day, hanging out all day. Yeah, like
No, that
that's
would
what
be
I would do.
cool.
Yeah, like buying the booth, setting it up,
It'd be
traveling.
funny if they have you doing Hatchet and Living Corpse, and having the guy that does Florida Man right next to him, because that's on the same level, isn't it?
Florida Man. I'm not sure what Florida Man is.
Yeah,
Is
I'm
that
pretty
from
sure
American
that
Mythology?
they got Florida Man as one of their titles as well. So have completely polarizing types of figures next to each
Yeah,
other.
my publisher is a writer, and he's written some really cool stuff. He worked on Army of Darkness, Freddy vs. Jason vs. Ash, Bionic Man. He's pretty established. Jim Kahurik. And he's that one guy that I was saying earlier about McFarlane saying that you just got to find one guy that likes your stuff, and Jim is that guy for me. And I never underestimate what he's going to text me and tell me to work on next. So hearing Florida Man is not surprising. I mean, he was doing Three Stooges not long ago, and Stargate, and all kinds of stuff. Yeah, he's a good creator. I like working with him.
Well, it looks like you got some Hatchet love going on over here.
Yeah,
So
I have heard. I don't work with Adam directly, but through my writer and publisher, Adam is definitely going to do another Hatchet movie. He's probably going to crowdfund it. You didn't hear that from me, but you did. I know that Kane Hodder is 100% down to play and is waiting for the call because he's probably never going to play Jason again. And I think he's just waiting for the right time. Lately, I've seen Adam doing a lot of cons. He's been traveling and doing appearances. So that tells me he's gearing up for an announcement. I don't know any details or anything that he really is. But again, with him, he did Hatchet 1. I think he did Hatchet 2. And I don't know if it was 3 or 4, but it was Romero that told him, because he went to Romero and was like, I don't know if I'm being redundant or if I'm just like beating a dead horse. And Romero was the one that told him, are the fans asking for it? And he's like, yeah. He's like, then do it. And so I think it's the same mindset. It's like, do you love it? Do they want it? All right, then do it. You know, if you're sick
all
of
right.
it, then don't.
So for all the speculators and the FOMO freaks out there, what's the first appearance of Hatchet?
In the comics,
Yeah.
probably just Hatchet #1. There's a bunch of Hatchet #1s, but there's like a Hatchet #1 probably from like 2015 or 2016. I think I did a couple covers for it, you know.
So you got to go get that 2015 Hatchet #1.
It's definitely American Mythology. I do not believe it had a comic outside of that. And at any given time, you know, American Mythology could lose the license on it, and Adam could take that property somewhere else. but right now, we've been consistently putting out Halloween based storylines on the character. Adam is very particular about what storylines he'll let fly. Only recently has he been like willing to like do more creative stuff with we did a Hatchet issue. Actually, it was an 8-page story. We drew it during COVID, and it was like it was like Victor Crowley versus a swamp ape, because we were like, he's in Honey Island swamp, so like what else is in the swamp that he could fight? And so we came up with this like kind of like swampy Bigfoot thing he fights, and he like tears them apart. They tear each other apart, but like I didn't think it would fly because I thought it was like too much of a cryptid, and like Adam wouldn't be down for it. But he liked it, let it roll. He's very protective of the character and what to do with it. But at the same time, if you're going to put a new book out on it and it's just going to be like a one shot and you're doing one a year, you don't want to keep doing the same thing where it's like people take a tour in the swamp to go see the legend and then they get killed, because that's the movies. So you have to come up with like new stuff. Yeah.
You basically don't want to get it stale and kind of like
that one was cool.
Yeah.
I
You
saw
don't
the
want to get it
Alcohol Hammer.
outdated. Like not outdated. Like you just don't want it to like get played out, kind of a thing. You want to.
You can really overdo it.
More.
Like I said, it's so much work to make these books. You don't want them to fall flat on the audience. You want them to hit. You know what I mean? And so, you got to keep reinventing the wheel on it if you can.
I still want to see the rest of those sketches. I'm not gonna let you off the hook.
All right, so this is.
I think he froze. Uh-oh. 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 Uh-oh, did he freeze? I think he froze. Uh-oh. What the hell?
My favorite one.
There he goes. Sorry, we lost you for a second.
Oh, yeah. It's okay. I think my earbuds are dying, actually, because it's been like 2.5 hours. But
listen, I'm not going to keep you on too long. So.
Oh, you're good. You're good. There's the Whilce Portacio one. So anyway, I'm a big fan of him from the X-Men days and Image and stuff. But I went up to him and asked him for the sketch. I'm like, I'm a huge fan. I'm like, this is not for a cover. It's not for resale. It's in a bound book. I can't take it out. And he was like, nah, I don't want to do it. And I was like, come on, trying to talk. Like, it's my character. Like, he's like, I only do sketches for the characters that I've worked on. And I was like, and I was like, waiting in line a while. I was first in line. And he like spoke to his manager, whoever it was, and they ended up charging me like a little bit more to get it, but yeah, I got it. So.
Oh, so he charged you more because
Yeah. He charged me more, but like I honestly, like I said, like I'm a hard nut to crack. Like I wanted it, so I'm not scared.
All right.
To pay for it.
I can't get mad at that. I guess you put him out of his comfort zone. Holy crap! Who did that?
That's Tommy Castillo, man. He passed away. That's another guy that passed.
Holy shit! Yeah. Nice 2-page splash. Look at
that.
Got
a Fred Hembeck from the old Marvel What If stuff.
Yeah, that's a fun one.
And then this is a Mike Manley who created Darkhawk. He was another great educational source for me. Could be a local guy and
that's a fun rendition.
Yeah, I loved the different takes on it. Here's a Barry.
Did you know that Fred Hembeck destroyed the Marvel Universe?
Yeah.
Who was that? Who was that last one?
That was Barry Kitson, is an old Flash artist in DC years and stuff.
That's a good rendition. He's the only one I've seen so far that didn't put the hood on him.
Yeah. The hood is really the main thing.
Hoods are pain in the ass to draw.
Yeah, this is awesome. This is Craig Rousseau, creator of the Perhapernauts. He was also a artist on Impulse.
That's pretty cool. That's giving me graffiti vibes.
Yeah, he's got a killer style. I was just chasing guys that had cool styles. And some guys weren't into it, and you just got to keep going to the next one.
Here's a crossover that's being recommended to you. Hatchet meets Pumpkinhead.
That would be awesome. Yeah, Dynamite has the rights to Pumpkinhead, and we did a cover for the trade paperback, but we tried the volley.
That.
Yeah, we tried the volley to to get the gig to draw Pumpkinhead. Pumpkinhead, like there's certain characters like you were saying earlier, if like Marvel called, I would more jump on things if horror called. You know what I mean? Like if I got the opportunity to do Pumpkinhead, I'd probably do it for free. Yeah, like, I wouldn't care. I just want to
It
do
seems
it.
like Dynamite's snatching up for the IP on a lot of these horror characters.
A lot of people are trying to snatch up IPs on the horror stuff just because horror's back in like a big way. And there's a lot of like merch companies coming out, and like, there's all these new podcasting people, and then it's cool. It's awesome to see a resurgence for it. People don't realize that before you had the MCU, you had Universal Horror Monsters. Universal Horror Monsters were the first crossover universe, Dracula versus the Wolfman. And they were the first blockbuster films in Hollywood. So they were the movies to make big money, much like the Marvel stuff today. So, like, I don't know. I always come back to horror for me. If I had to do a superhero thing, it would be tough for me to not put a dark twist on it. But that's just who I am as a creator.
Well, right now you got the MonsterVerse that's being resurrected by the movie studios with Godzilla and King Kong and all that stuff coming back as well. It's a great time to be a horror fan or a monster fan, because you were finally seeing stuff being put out there. It's all cyclical though.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like it is cyclical. It does come and go. Like, I don't credit The Walking Dead for bringing zombies back. I credit the Goon. Like Eric Powell's The Goon brought zombies back. He made them cool and fun again. And then that came out way before Walking Dead. And Dead World.
As far as comics, Dead World got some great covers too. I love
Dead World. Dead World was the first successful zombie comic book. It predates Walking Dead by 2 decades. And a lot of the characters out of Dead World sort of reappear in The Walking Dead.
Yeah, and then you can't dismiss the video games that brought zombies.
Yeah, Resident Evil for sure. Yeah, it was like, again, it's always been there. It's always been in the background. There's always somebody doing something with it, and then a couple things do it well enough to catch on. House of the Dead, the arcade game, simultaneous with PlayStation's Resident Evil, and you're starting to get the hype back around again. A lot of people are finding out now that
Dead remake.
The Dawn of the Dead remake by Zack Snyder. I mean, you're talking about a guy that has his own universe now, remaking a classic zombie movie and improving it. It was a really strong film. Also scripted by James.
Film. I still like the original though.
I do like the original too, but that movie was directed by Zack Snyder, written by James Gunn. So who are your two guys making all the shit now?
I don't like running zombies. Are you a fan of running zombies?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's cool, but I think, like, all right, well, now that they're fast, like, if you want to keep the story going and have like a hero or like an antithesis to him, you've got to give those parties something to combat the speed with. So, okay, they're fast and they're crazy and they can fly and all this shit. Well, now you're gonna have to give somebody in the group a superpower. You know what I mean? So, yeah.
Well, here's the way I look at zombies. When they're freshly dead, okay, they should move fast, like at normal human speed. But as they decay and get older, they should slow down considerably. So
yeah. Well, Romero, honestly, from my conversations with him, he was slowly trying to make them remember and gain intellect again in the unlife. It was just like a slow process, and he didn't quite get to do it. And he did it in a comic series called Toe Tag that he wrote. I believe it was a DC book. I'm not sure who put it out. I know that Wrightson did the covers, and I think Castillo drew it. But he was like, the military was using zombies, reprogramming them, and so he was trying to find his way back to, like, the zombies were going to, like, figure out a way to, like, not code.
He did slowly introduce that in Day of the Dead as well, and then he showed a little bit more of that in Land of the Dead, which is probably the worst one of his Dead films.
I like that one.
It was fun. You got John Leguizamo that was in there too. It was a good movie, but it was not his strongest movie.
Yeah, it gets overlooked a lot, but it's. I mean, I think it production wise, it's just as good as the other ones. Um, and it's got some cool elements like the Dead Reckoning and the Dennis Hopper character and stuff like that. But yeah, he was trying to get back to them being like smarter, and that's what we created. Like our book was, it was like taking that aspect from Romero's universe and being like, all right, we're just going to fast track it. And he's this guy that kind of like knows he's undead. And like, if he doesn't eat brains or things like that, he gets weak. And then like those other like monstrous adversaries to like interplay with because we're big Universal fans. And so, yeah, I mean, we were just trying to do something in the light. It's like a love letter to Romero in a lot of ways, but more,
Makes a lot of sense. I mean,
more
the one
superhero.
movie that they made that had running zombies in there. I'm talking about hordes of zombies. I'm not talking one individual intelligent zombie. I'm talking about
Yeah.
hordes. 28
Mhm.
days later. I think
Yeah,
that
it's a
was.
great one.
I think that was the best depiction of running zombies.
Yeah, that was a great. It's another great movie. You know what I mean? You're at that point, you're putting this material out because there's an absence of it in the spectrum of things, and it's inspired by what hasn't been done yet. Again, you're
And let's not
creating,
forget Shaun of the Dead.
making things funny. You know what I mean? Like Shaun of the Dead making things funny. Edgar Wright, you know what I mean? The guy that basically, made the first Ant-Man movie and then took his name off of it. But yeah, I mean, you've got red on you. You know what I mean? Like it's just making it fun. Like Evil Dead was like that, making it fun, and so I think there's impossible to not take influence from the things previous.
We
Yeah.
can't confuse deadites with zombies. Come on, deadites are a different breed.
I mean, yeah,
I'm a big fan of that whole genre. So I could probably talk
Yeah.
about zombies with you forever, to be quite honest
Yeah, I
with
mean,
you.
yeah.
But I do know that you've been gracious enough to actually talk to us for over 2.5 hours now, and I'm sure we could talk for another 2.5 hours without a problem.
Yeah,
But then I
definitely.
won't have a great reason to have you back again. So
Hey,
I want
thank you.
I want to keep the people waiting and asking for more. But I'm going to open up the forum for questions. I know we've been answering a lot of questions along the line, but just in case there's anybody out there that does have a question that hasn't been answered or hasn't asked it yet, I want them to have an opportunity to ask it. But before I do that, I want to actually bring this up to you. I know that you saw that we had that trailer for Comics Curing Cancer C3 for next week. We did talk about it a little bit. You said you'd want to get somewhat involved in that.
Yeah, I'd love to contribute a sketch if it's a blank cover or something on paper, or if you guys want a sketch of the corpse to give away or auction. Like I'm down to contribute, a swag bag for y'all.
Oh, that's going to be so awesome. I'll leave that up to your disposal as far as what you want to do, and we could auction it off during the live stream next week. So I'll send you all the details on that. We'll talk about that more. But you heard it here. Buzz has been gracious enough to and it looks like and it looks like we're going to have a very, very nice, healthy amount of art that's going to be put out. It'll be really fun.
That's awesome, man. That's good.
I appreciate that very, very much. So let's see if anybody has any questions to ask for us. Hold on a second. Let's see. Well, I know why people aren't asking a question because I didn't put the official clip for them.
Any questions?
Don't answer no questions, and I won't tell you no lies.
Hey Lord, don't ask me questions. Hey Lord, don't ask me questions, please.
What do you want? What do you want from us? To ask you this much is just a matter of trust, not an affront. What do you want?
Technically, Dr. Von Hoot, by the way, has one of the best names in the entire comic community. You are correct. They are not zombies. They're diseased. They're diseased. They're infected. You are correct. And that's probably why I thought that movie worked so well, because they were diseased and they had rabies, basically. They had Rabies on steroids in that movie.
Yeah, it was kind of grounded in a more realistic approach.
I thought the like bleeding eyes and all that stuff going on with them, with the black eye pupils and all that stuff, really made them freakier than any gruesome zombie they could have put together. Just because I haven't seen that before. I like that. I like that so much. I think House of a Thousand Corpses. No, was it? No, was it House of a Thousand Corpses?
It's more of like a Texas
No,
Chainsaw Crazy Killer movie.
No, it was Island of Corpses or something like that. The one with another like that was made off of of a video game where they're all running like crazy. The zombies.
No, Island of the Dead.
Island of the Dead, was that it?
Yeah, I think so.
I didn't like the way that worked. It just looked too nuts for me.
Yeah, sometimes it's a hard sell if it's the same stuff over and over again.
So, you think we're gonna actually see a Pumpkinhead versus Hatchet?
I know we're trying. I don't know if Nick Barucci, who runs Dynamite, will let us do it. We've bugged them, but we'll see.
What character, if you could get your hooks on, any character, it doesn't matter who it is, you could get your hooks on for one issue to draw and put a story together, whether it's with Hatchet or whether it's with the Olympic, it's just you want to be able to create something with that character. What would that character be?
Well, I mean, personally, it's either going to be like a Night of the Creeps comic book or Return of the Living Dead, Monster Squad.
Monster Squad. Wow, that's actually cool.
Stuff like that. Universal Horror. I like slashers. You know, if I got a chance to draw Jason,
but there's no one specific character that like you would want to just run ham on.
There's a lot of them. It's hard to pick one. That's a really good question. I'm a little stuck on it because I love them all, man. I love so many of them. You know, there's a lot of big shoes to follow on some of the more popular characters, so I'd probably stay away from like really popular characters and probably just stay with like the Pumpkinhead or like a Jason Voorhees or.
Well, it looks like you're gonna have people
bugging
Nick
about
about
be
Pumpkinhead.
Awesome. That's what it's gonna take, honestly. Me bugging him is not gonna work. Everybody else.
I'll tell you
like,
what,
if
he's gonna be here in New York, I'll break his balls about it when I see him.
Please do, man. Like me and Ken, we have a good relationship with him. Ken works for the guy. I'm trying to think. Let me finish this thought. But yeah, like if you guys bug him, like he might do it. He really might. Like he's kind of like that. Like you just gotta hammer him.
World War Z was another good one.
Yeah. That's based on the books and stuff.
I enjoyed World War Z. I didn't think I would, but I enjoyed it a lot.
My thoughts on how it would affect things internationally is it probably would fly like COVID, where like within 45 days it would just be all over the world. And
You're probably right.
I think people I think in like Last of Us, I think certain people would develop resistances to it because I think Night of the Creeps rocks. Yeah, I think you know, I think the potential within the human DNA skin suit is capable of anything, and I think that I think eventually like someone would develop a resistance to it, which is kind of like the one guy in that show Z Nation was doing, but
yeah,
Maniac Cop too. I would love to do Maniac Cop.
That's the only thing with
Z Nation. It's campy because they don't. It's campy because they don't spend any money. They don't want to make it like good, so they just like cheap out on it. But the reason why that dude appeared in that series was because I had pitched The Asylum, The Living Corpse, like probably 10 times. You should make a movie out of this. You should make a live action movie out of this. And you bug them and they read your content and they look at it and then they're like, I'm not sure. And then they go and make a character that, you know, is like a sentient zombie guy who's living with the disease. And it's like, okay, where'd you get that idea? You know? But yeah, I mean,
that's an idea that I think would work really well with your art. Maniac Cop.
Yeah, I love Maniac Cop. I love that one. That's a great one. Another Bruce Campbell movie. And yeah, I love the idea of an undead cop you have the right to remain silent forever.
You
Yeah,
don't
I
even
love
have
the
to.
chupacabra too.
You don't even have to think about a lot of the dialogue. You just gotta get those 5-6 lines in there, and you're good. Action. It's all about the action.
Yep. Yeah, there's plenty of crooks to beat up. Monster Squad rocks. Yeah, and I love the chupacabra idea. It's another great one.
Chupacabras might be my least favorite monster.
I think it's like it's. I think it's something that like is kind of like, you know, it's like, is it alien or is it cryptid or is it monster? And it's like I feel like there's still a lot you can do with it.
Freaks me out the way he looks. I don't know. You just
Yeah, it's weird. It'd be cool if there was like a race of them. You know what I mean? And there was like a nest of them.
now you're talking.
Yeah,
A
maybe
whole
you could find
horde.
like like an artifact or something that like
No,
leads
stop,
into
stop,
it.
stop, stop! Don't tell everybody your ideas. They're gonna steal it.
And this is how you get ripped off. You're like, as a creator, just always spilling
No.
ideas, and then someone just swipes them.
Anybody listening, forget what we just talked about.
Yeah,
It's
all
a
good.
shitty idea. Don't take
Make
it.
the comic, and then let me do a cover. I'm just kidding.
Don't take this shitty idea. It's actually a great idea. A horde of them. Just like, I would love to see that.
Yeah, I think they work in like a hive more than like an individual. But that's just me. I mean,
Like aliens.
yeah. I mean, that the idea for Alien coming from Dan O'Bannon, who got the idea from studying insect, culture, how insects dominate and parasite.
Like a queen chupacabra.
That would be great. We better stop giving people them ideas.
Stop. Listen, people. Hey, you thieves. You didn't hear anything here. Actually, you know what? We documented on here on a live stream, and I'm never going to erase this unless YouTube cancels me. We're never going to erase this. And we have proof that this idea was created here. So now you're screwed.
Yeah.
Go ahead, steal the idea so we can make gazillions off of your work. Go ahead. Go ahead. I dare you. I wonder if that works. If somebody's just brainstorming and comes out with some crazy idea on a live stream or on a video, and it's been documented, it's published, it's out there, and somebody steals the idea, I wonder if they have a fighting shot to get rights to it.
Not really. I mean, it can come up in like journalistic argument, but like the patent and licensing offices were created to steal ideas. They were not created to protect them. It's so that you can send your ideas in, and that the people at the higher up level can look at it and be like, "Oh, we could do something with that." They sell it to you as supposed to protect you, but contracts don't really, like, they're supposed to work. But in my experience, contracts don't mean shit. Like, people have.
Well, even the copyright of the patent office and trademark offices, they're not forever. Look, Mickey Mouse is going to be sooner or
Public
later.
domain.
He's going to be public domain.
I think it's
Are you
next year.
looking forward
or
to doing a Mickey Mouse zombie?
No,
That'd be interesting.
Yeah. It's funny. You know what I mean? Like, how's Disney going to protect that? But anyway, yeah.
That's tough. That's going to be super, super tough. You're going to see zombified Mickey Mouses and Batmans and all kinds of stuff within the next 10 years.
They're already bootlegging them. You know what I mean? So
I'm not talking about the bootleg.
You can't keep up with it. Oh yeah, people will do. You saw the Winnie the Pooh horror movie pics or ads or whatever, and that was the same thing. It's 75 years past the creator's death, and so somebody went ahead and made like a spoof horror version of it.
I guess everybody mouse. I guess everybody does. But
I'm more of a haunted mansion guy.
You know what? I went on the Haunted Mansion ride this past February with my kids. I took them down to Disney,
and
I literally got brought back to a different time again.
It's very cool. Yeah,
it was something about that ride that just, like, I don't know what it was. It just put me in another mindset, different place. I love that stuff. Have you seen the new movie?
I have. I liked it. I just like the concept. I like haunted mansion stuff. I like ghost stories. I like that stuff. So for me, it's pretty cool. Yeah, Pooh, Blood and Honey. Yeah.
Well, do you actually visit the haunted mansions around you?
I used to. Yeah, I used to. I used to do makeup effects work at the Penhurst Asylum haunted house, which was a real asylum for years.
Oh, that
And
must have been
before,
super fun.
yeah, I mean, at 3 o'clock in the day, it's scary. You know, with the sun out, it's still scary as shit. And you can bring home some unwanted guests with you sometimes. But yeah, like you know, they decided to turn it into a haunted house. Some of it's condemned, so some of it they couldn't use. But it was probably one of the more visceral experiences I've had working in an actual haunted asylum as a haunted house, like during the haunt season. But
Oh, that must have been super, super, super fun.
it was intense, man. Like, you know, there's backstages and sets for actors and costuming and all this stuff, and then you know you get lost in that aspect of it, and then when the excitement dies down and people are running through the haunt and you're kind of chilling, you're like, oh shit, like I'm in this abandoned haunted asylum still. Like I'm no longer a working artist now. I'm just like looking around like creeped out. So it's kind of fun. Instead of it being like a farm or a warehouse, you know, you're in a place where, you know, one of the old groundskeepers said that they used to take care of the grounds when it was an active asylum, and they said it was scarier to be in it now that it's abandoned and not hear the screaming. So I thought that was interesting.
Well, I got to tell you something. One of my most horrific experiences in one of these type of things was in a maze, a corn maze that they had out in Long Island. I forgot exactly where it was. This was years ago. Freaked me out like, completely because not only am I seeing all the stuff that it's meant to scare the crap out of you. You have people running around with chainsaws and all that stuff, but you also have little animals, like real animals, running around too.
Oh,
Inside
yeah.
so
And
you're like, what the hell is that?
And bacteria and mold and all kinds of gross stuff.
So that kind of freaked me out too. I'm like, a rat's gonna come out of nowhere, a raccoon or something like that.
Very possible.
Yeah, so it's fun stuff. But Buzz, is there anything other than the upcoming books that you're doing right now? You're doing the Hatchet. What else you have coming up that you would want to promote right now?
The next big thing would be the My Bloody Valentine comics in February. I think there will be a Kickstarter for that, and I got a bunch of covers coming out for that, and we'll see what the script looks like. There's a chance I may do some interiors on it, but we'll see what's up. It's Hatchet this month, Night of the Living Dead. We just did a bunch of Fright Nights. We just did a bunch of Willy's Wonderlands, and My Bloody Valentine is early 2024. And I'm hoping if things go right, there might be some more licensing that comes our way. But we're always trying to work on the next thing. But right now it's My Bloody Valentine for February. And there's going to be some scary Christmas covers I'm doing in December. They were drawn in July, but there's like a really cool Krampus one.
Ooh, I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, the Krampus one turned out great. And then they always sort of have me do like a cheesecake naughty cover too. So if you're into that stuff, but yeah, the Krampus one is dope.
You gotta send me the link for that one.
Yeah, I will. It's up on Preview's site.
All right, perfect. I'll look it up, and I'll actually when I'm doing because I'm actually gonna do similar to what I'm doing with the Halloween stuff. I'm gonna do a Christmas thing, so I'd love to pick that up.
Oh, cool. Yeah, if you want me to come back on for the Christmas stuff, I'll come on and show that stuff off. And
absolutely. And if you want to promote Bloody Valentine when that comes on, my Bloody Valentine,
yeah.
Hey.
Yeah, I might actually. By December, I should have more solid finished visuals on that with colors and release dates and things like that. We'll be a little more rounded out on that.
Well, we could definitely talk about that. But I'm saying even when you get closer to the Kickstarter, I'm sure you're going to want to do your promoting a campaign when that happens.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I'd love to come on. And
I connect you with a couple of individuals that do a lot of Kickstarter promotions as well, like K-pop, who's been actively in the chat. People that could help put it out there for you.
I would absolutely appreciate that, man. That's what this community really is all about. Is about sharing the wealth and supporting the independent creators, and it keeps us going. Like, the more commenting, the more sharing, it really is putting logs on the fire of the creativity. You know, if people don't share and don't help promote at the independent level, like support begets support. So if you support people, they support you. And I think that's what this is all about at the end of the
Well,
day.
I love supporting everybody. It's great to support, but it's even better when you're supporting somebody that actually has some good talent. that helps a lot as well. And it also helps if I could have a conversation with you, and I'm not. I'd rather watch paint dry than listen to you talk. You know, so
Yeah.
the fact that you could hold the conversation helps me out. So you got an open door here anytime you want to come. So
Awesome, man. Thank you.
I appreciate you, and I appreciate everybody in the chat. You guys are awesome.
Thank you for showing up, everybody. I appreciate it.
Let's give everybody a thank you, and then we'll sign off. Thank you, guys. Have a
you,
great
guys.
night. I'm going to NYCC tomorrow.
Hey, good luck at the show, man.
Oh, it'll be fun. You have no idea. I'll put some videos up there. I'm gonna. Part of my thing is annoying people when I go to these things. So the more people I can annoy, the better. It's gonna be fun. I'm gonna meet a lot of community members over there. So it's gonna be a lot of fun. But thanks, everyone.
I'll be following you online, man. Thanks again.
All right, I appreciate it.
Very much.
My friends, I thank you from the bottom of my heart.
I want to thank you much. Thank you very Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.